Chapter 526. When everyone heard this, they were instantly dumbfounded. This was really an imperial edict. At this moment, everyone looked at Zhang Feng in disbelief. He was wearing plain clothes and did not have a single shoe on his feet. They were dumbfounded. How was he going to receive the edict in this state? Wasn't this too much of a mockery? If this reached the emperor's ears, no matter how good it was, this was disrespecting an imperial edict. If it was light, his legs would be broken. If it was heavy, he would be beheaded. Fortunately, the old village chief was experienced and knowledgeable. He hurriedly went forward to apologize. Eunuchs, please wait a moment. Feng Zi is used to being carefree, but receiving an imperial edict is like meeting the emperor. How can he be so sloppy? So, please wait a moment. I'll arrange for a few people to go in and familiarize Feng Zi. How about it? Alright. Then hurry up. What could the old eunuch say? This was the rule. Most importantly, he wanted to delay until the emperor entered the room and did not come out. He was prepared to read the imperial edict in one breath. Otherwise, would the emperor really kneel to receive the edict? He would not need to return to the palace. He would really be amputated. Therefore, when he heard the old village chief's words, he hurriedly agreed. The old village chief did not hesitate. He waved his walking stick and shouted, "Fellow villagers, this is the first time someone has received an imperial edict in Tonghui Lane. This is a joyous occasion for our Tonghui Lane. You old women, quickly go into the room and dress Feng Zi up. You, Zhu Zi's mother, don't just stand there. Quickly go and boil water for Feng Zi to wash his hair, clean his face, bathe, and change his clothes." When Zhang Feng heard this, his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. "Old village chief, there's no need for that, right? I'll just go in and change my clothes. What's going on? I have to bathe and change my clothes? Sigh. Feng Zi, you don't have to worry about this. You just be a big boss for once." Everyone here was very excited. Even old He and Zhu Zi's father carried Zhang Feng into the room. There were also some busybodies who followed the old village head to each household to scour out their hidden money. They went to the market and bought a large basket of firecrackers, as if they were afraid that no one would know about it. They struck the drum and set off the firecrackers. Old and young masters of Tong Hui Fong, listen up. Today is a big day for our Tong Hui Fong. This is the first time we've received an imperial edict from the emperor. Needless to say, you should be able to guess who received the imperial edict, right? That's right. It's that brat Zhang Feng. Let's go. Bring out your spirits and enjoy the joyous atmosphere. Maybe your luck will change too. Old and young masters, today is our big day. These people seem to be afraid that others wouldn't know. In the end, he even found a mule and a horse. He rode on the horse, struck the instrument, and showed off on the street. Even the angry bailiff was dumbfounded when he heard about this. He hurriedly followed the crowd to the small tavern. In fact, when Niu Weili heard the news, his vision went dark and he fainted. Before he fainted, he held on to advisor Ma. "Quick, carry me to the small tavern." Happy Heart Refreshment Shop also received the news about this. When Zhang Yuyao's personal maid, Xiao Chui, heard the news, she kept chattering in the mansion like a sparrow. Something happened, something happened. Something happened to the young master. Someone from the palace is here. He's really waiting at the young master's door to give him an imperial edict. When Old Master Zhang and Old Master Zhang heard about this, they hurriedly called for a few servants to go to the small tavern to help. They even hung red decorations at the entrance of the mansion. In the mansion, Old Man held Zhang Yuyao's hand and knelt in front of the ancestral tablets, crying bitterly. He kept shouting something about the ancestors' blessings and blessings. Although Zhang Yuyao's face was red and she didn't say anything, her heart was as sweet as honey. She secretly sniffed a poem that Zhang Feng had given her in return. She was so shy that her face turned even redder. Seeing this, Old Man and others laughed so hard that only their teeth could be seen but not their eyes. Yao's father was so excited that he shouted, "Come on, quickly invite old Madame Wang and the old scholar. I want to treat them to wine. Good wine." At the entrance of the small tavern. During this hour, the eunuchs were all anxious. None of the eunuchs were anxious. On the contrary, each and every one of them was eager to delay this matter as long as possible. However, as time went on, more and more people came. It was as if they were celebrating the new year. They surrounded the small tavern with 8 layers of people inside and 8 layers of people outside. The sound of firecrackers never stopped. However, they secretly rejoiced. Fortunately, the crown prince and the others were in Chang and university at this time and couldn't come. Otherwise, they would have been doomed. Although all the eunuchs hoped that this imperial edict could be delayed as long as possible, they couldn't get away from it. At this time, Zhang Feng was wearing a moon-white Confucian robe. The lapel of his robe was also decorated with high-quality gilding. A jade hairpin with a red crown crane was inserted into his hair bun. At this time, his beard was hanging. Zhang Feng's peerless appearance instantly made the women in Chang and city scream. What an elegant young master! Li Shimin coughed when he saw the eunuchs still dawdling. The guard behind the old eunuch said coldly, "The imperial edict has arrived." Nil. Chapter 527. Hearing this, the old eunuch trembled. His body trembled, and he almost threw the imperial edict in his hands to the ground and kneeled down first. "Damn it, who the F***ck yelled that? Didn't you see the emperor here? How could you make the emperor kneel? You're going to kill me. What should I do? What the hell should I do?" The old eunuch looked at the people kneeling down. He was so anxious that his whole body was trembling. His eyes were fixed on Li Shimin, who was standing behind Zhang Feng. When he saw the emperor kneeling down, he couldn't help but feel dizzy. Zhang Feng was a little confused. He felt that the old eunuch who was about to announce the imperial edict was looking at him strangely. His whole body was trembling. How long had it been since the old eunuch left the palace? He was so sick, and he still came out to announce the imperial edict? Zhang Feng didn't think much about it. He just thought that these old eunuchs were trembling because of their bodies. Would they be like this if they ate just a little bit of the bone-strengthening powder? At this moment, the old eunuch also began to announce the imperial edict. By the emperor's imperial edict, today, Zhang Feng, the shopkeeper of Tonghui Lane Winery, has made a great contribution to the Tang dynasty. Hereby, I bestow the title of Viscount to Zhang Feng, hereditary. Zhang Feng's pupils couldn't help but tremble. Damn it, the emperor still had some conscience. But for the people of Tonghui Lane present, this was a big deal. Viscount, although it was only the lowest noble title, it was still a noble title. And it wasn't even a county baron, but a viscount, which was even higher than a county baron, and it was hereditary. Generally, noble titles were not hereditary. Whether it was a county baron, a viscount, or a duke, which was higher than a viscount, none of them were hereditary. But any title with the word hereditary was a great existence. At this moment, although the old eunuch didn't say what Zhang Feng had done, the people could only think that Zhang Feng's trip to the academy this time was very important to the emperor. The old eunuch paused. In fact, he was looking at Li Shimin, who was kneeling on the ground. His palms were cramping. However, since the imperial edict had already begun, it could not be stopped. Only then did the old eunuch continue to read, "Today, we learn that you are going to establish an innovative new school on Mount Shao. We are very pleased. Therefore, he is rewarded with 10,000 taels of gold and 50,000 mu of land on Mount Shao to Zhang Feng. As for White Deer College in Shao Mountain, its rank is equal to that of Imperial College. All of the teachers will receive the same salary as the Imperial College's Chancellor and Secretary of Temple. After 3 years, they will be rewarded separately. As for the students of White Deer College, after they graduate, they can bring along a document issued by Zhang Feng and become an official in the Imperial Court or work in the Ministry of Works. All the properties of Xianxia Academy will also be under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Works. Boom! After the last bit of the imperial edict was read out, the entire Tonghui Lane went into an uproar. What's going on? Fengzi's academy is going to become popular. Oh my god! What kind of academy did Fengzi open? How could the emperor think so highly of it? God has blessed my Tonghui Feng. Finally, a golden phoenix has flown out of this chicken nest. Old He, Zhuzi's father, Zhuzi's dog, and the others were the most noisy. However, no one said that they wanted to send their sons in. Obviously, they felt that they were not qualified. As for the old village chief, he swung his walking stick shakily. Folks, quickly buy all the firecrackers you can buy for Lao Tzu. Today, I want to make Tong Hui Lane explode. Okay. It's time to let the name of Tong Hui Lane. Wait. Shopkeeper Zhang has treated us veterans well. We, the Enlu workshop, will take care of these firecrackers. Wait, my master said that today, our Eason dessert shop will hold a big banquet for guests. Everyone who comes to celebrate the son-in-law must be present. Zhang Feng was very excited at first. However, when he heard the word son-in-law, the smile on his face froze. Little brother Zhang Feng, accept the imperial edict and thank the emperor for his kindness. At this moment, the eunuchs hurriedly urged Zhang Feng to get up. Just now, the crowd was too noisy. They did not dare to disturb these people. Didn't they see the emperor smiling at these people until his teeth were exposed? However, now that the crowd had finally quieted down, the eunuchs hurriedly urged him to get up. They even had the feeling of kneeling down and begging Zhang Feng to get up. Zhang Feng just noticed that these people, no matter old or young, were all speaking in a trembling voice. Moreover, they were all sweating like they were drunk. At this moment, Zhang Feng looked up and noticed that these people's legs were shaking. This was not right. Zhang Feng got up and took the imperial edict from the old eunuch's hand, as well as a tray covered with a red cloth. The old eunuch cupped his hands and prepared to leave. Zhang Feng was very happy. He grabbed the old eunuch, took out a golden cake from his pocket, and stuffed it in the old eunuch's hand. Eunuch, I'm sorry for not serving you well today. Please. Before he could finish, the old eunuch withdrew his hand as if he had been electrocuted. He cupped his hands and ran away. Seeing this, Zhang Feng was stunned. I say, Oldly, what's going on? Didn't I hear that after the imperial edict was announced, there was a custom to return the favor to the person who announced the imperial edict? Why did they run away? And why are these people trembling all over? They can't even speak clearly. Are all eunuchs like this? The eunuchs who had not gone far heard this. Their heels went soft and they almost fell to the ground. Li Shimin smiled and stroked his beard. This is probably because they admire what you have done, so they are grateful from the bottom of their hearts. Chapter 528. Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. How could this be? But now was not the time to talk about this. He had to get rid of these neighbors first. Otherwise, if these free firecrackers set a place on fire, it would be a big joke. Zhang Feng waved his hand and shouted at the top of his voice, Folks! Quiet down and listen to me. Quiet down. Old and young men, can we stop for a moment? Hey! Zhang Feng's throat was almost hoarse from shouting. With the help of the old village chief and the others, he finally managed to calm down these enthusiastic neighbors. Zhang Feng looked at the crowd and said, Thank you very much for your support today. I can be where I am today because of your help. Our academy has just started and it hasn't been officially built yet. I hope you can help me more in the future. Fengzi, I want to ask why your academy is in Shao Mountain. How did you think of such a faraway place? Don't you have an academy in Chang'an City? What are you doing there? That's right, Fengzi. What are you trying to do with your 2 academies? Zhang Feng knew these people were going to ask this question. He smiled slightly and said, The academy in Chang'an City is still recruiting for the time being, but it will be run according to the old rules of the Tang dynasty. As for the White Deer College in Shao Mountain, you can learn everything from me. Whether it's beer brewing, cooking, business methods, etc., as long as you can think of it, I will teach you. Everyone was stunned when they heard that. Then what are you trying to do? How does it have anything to do with an academy? Yeah, it's easy for barbecue. You can learn it by just teaching. How did it become a specialized subject? Hearing this, Zhang Feng smiled and said, You don't F***king know? In my academies, not only will I teach you this, but I will also teach you some knowledge from books. Confucius and Mencius are trivial. You see, barbecue is easy? But do you know how to expand this into a business? Everyone was stunned. Isn't this just finding a place to set it up? What else was there? However, since Feng Zi was able to set up an academy, it definitely wouldn't be that simple. Everyone could only wait anxiously. This barbecue is simple, but how to develop it into a business is difficult. Think about it. Although this barbecue stall makes money, how can it make you rich in a short time? Now that our Tang dynasty has entered the golden age, the life is good, and the good days are coming. When the time comes, countless foreigners will pour into our Tang dynasty. What we want to earn is the money of the foreign barbarians, right? This is related to one thing, and that is the trade route. When the time comes, think about it. How can we get this thing to the foreign countries and earn money from those barbarians while also making a fortune for ourselves? Those merchants treat this as a treasure that has been passed down from generation to generation. However, in my academy, this thing can be learned as long as you want to. Then I'll teach you all. When everyone heard this, their eyes instantly burned with passion. Feng Zi, then tell me, can a bamboo craftsman get rich? Teach bamboo craftsmen? My father is a bamboo craftsman, but he hasn't made any money in his life. Tell me, can this skill make money? Feng Zi, I'm a kiln craftsman. Tell me, can this thing make me rich? Then can you teach me how to sell pork better? Li Shimin felt a headache coming on as he looked at the strange questions. However, Zhang Feng still answered them one by one. Zheng Tofu. This meat can be sold the same, but you still don't know the business knowledge. So if you want to sell this meat well, you have to learn. As for this bamboo craftsman, sorry, I can't teach you this thing. However, I can tell you clearly that this thing is the same. You lack one thing, and that is business management. Everyone looked at Zhang Feng as if they were looking at an immortal. How could such an ordinary item contain so many secrets? Why did Feng Zi say that even a bamboo craftsman could make money? And it looked like he was making a lot of money? Everyone's eyes couldn't help but burn with passion. In this era, everyone was afraid of being poor. Once they heard that there was a way to make money, they would crazily dive into it. Zheng Tufu waved his butcher knife and pushed the crowd aside. He rushed to Zhang Feng and knelt down with a thud. Master, you are my master, so please teach me how to use this thing. Stop. Zhang Feng's head was about to explode. He hurriedly said, let me say this first. You all heard it just now. This is a proper academy, and it's an academy that follows the emperor's orders. So, the things you all said, I can't teach you for the time being. When everyone heard this, they couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. However, after Zhang Feng's next sentence, everyone couldn't help but become excited again. But when the time comes, there will naturally be students who will impart these things to you. This is also something that the students here have to do before they graduate. I'm not recruiting just anyone. Although we don't charge tuition, at least there's a threshold of age. The minimum is 6 years old, and the maximum is 24 years old. Those who are older than this, then forget it. Here, you have to abide by the rules too. However, there's no threshold for recruiting students. As long as you have dolls at home, after a few days, when I've settled things on my side, I'll set up a recruitment office. You can bring your dolls to report. Chapter 529. It took Zhang Feng a lot of effort to get rid of these people. He was in a good mood. It seemed that it would be easier to get things done with an imperial edict. However, Zhang Feng thought for a while and said again, everyone. You all heard it. The imperial edict just said that the students who graduate from my academy will be able to enter the imperial court and become officials. Therefore, you all don't have to worry. You can pass down those craftsmen and artisans to your children. When they learn well, they'll naturally be chosen by the Ministry of Works. By then, your ancestral skills will be able to walk out of the Tang dynasty and into foreign countries. The premise is that your children are willing to learn and want to learn. Who knows, they might even be able to become the Minister of Works in the future. But they can learn everything else. Zhang Feng explained again. The entire street was in an uproar. The servants of the Zhang mansion were all on the move. They were all dressed in red and carried tables from the entrance of the Zhang mansion to the entrance of Zhang Feng's tavern. Zhang Feng looked at them. Only then did he remember the important matter. He waved his hand and said, "Fellow villagers, thank you for your kindness. Today, Feng Zi is treating. There's enough beer. Eat and drink to your heart's content." "That's right. My son-in-law is only able to achieve what he has today because of your love. Although my son-in-law's elders are not here, as long as I, Zhang Shan, am here, you can come to me if you encounter any problems in the future." At this moment, old Master Zhang, who was dressed in luxurious clothes, looked at Zhang Feng with a flushed face. The more a father-in-law looked at his son-in-law, the more he liked him. Zhang Feng, on the other hand, was in a dilemma. He felt that he had nowhere to put his hands and feet. He nudged Old Li with his elbow and realized that Li Shimin, this bastard, had started chatting with Old He and the old village chief without him noticing. This gave Zhang Feng a headache. However, he could only brace himself and give a fist salute. "Uncle Zhang, why did you come in person?" "Ah, Prince Zhang, I'm here to congratulate you. Come, let's go inside." Hearing this, Zhang Feng's face stiffened. Hearing bursts of laughter, he hurriedly pulled old man Zhang Feng into the tavern. Li Shimin and the others were also outside, staring at Zhang Feng. This was the first time he had seen Zhang Feng suffer a setback, and he couldn't help but feel delighted. He waved his hand and said, "You, quickly go and invite Zhou Dufu over. Today is brother Zhang Feng's big day. Go and call old Qin and the others over. Let's have a good drink." The chamberlains of Jin had already hidden themselves in the crowd, secretly guarding around Li Shimin. At this time, there were too many people, and the daggers on their waists were already sweating cold sweat. But at this moment he couldn't show it. That was why it was the most unbearable. Fortunately, Li Shimin also knew about this matter. He pulled the village chief, Old He, and Zhu Zi's father to sit at the entrance of the tavern. When the crowd of onlookers saw the baskets of pastries in the Zhang residence and the busy setting up the tables, they became furious. The village chief's lungs were about to explode. After comforting Li Shimin, he roared, "Do you all really want to eat and wait for death? Feng Zi is the treasure of our Tong Huifang. Now that his father-in-law's people are here to help, you all must be blind. Go back home and bring your own tables and chairs over. Are you waiting to squat on the floor and eat? Motherf *, go and help me." Only then did everyone let out a strange cry and disperse in an uproar. One after another, they went forward to help. Even that butcher Jing brought over a large fat pig, as if he was afraid that Zhang Feng couldn't hear him. He set up a large pot at the intersection and started to slaughter it. Ordinary people didn't have the ability to do that. They could only grab the roosters at home and stuff them in front of Zhang Feng's door as if they were free. In the end, the village chief had no choice but to go to the academy and ask the old scholar to write down everyone's congratulatory gifts in a book. Only then did the old scholar know about the matter of Zhang Feng's new academy. He seemed to think that Zhang Feng was greedy, so he sent Du Go, Li Chengqian, and a few other people who didn't look so happy to go over and help. When Jingshu knew about this matter, how could she sit still? She hurried her maid, took her guzheng, and hurried to the tavern in the sedan chair of the academy with her. At this time, the imperial edict was read out in the tavern. Then, the imperial guards went to the streets and alleys of Chang and city with copies of the imperial edict and reported to the provincial governments. At this time, the whole Chang and city knew about Zhang Feng's name and the matter of Zhang Feng's Daoshan Academy. Everyone was dumbfounded. What was shocking was that after 3 years of graduation, they could take Zhang Feng's documents to the Ministry of Personnel, Ministry of Justice, and Ministry of Works to apply for the examination to be an official in the imperial court. What was this? Damn it, even the imperial college couldn't do this, okay? Everyone hurried to Tonghui Lane to see if it was true or not. At this time, Niu Weili of the Chang and local government lost his temper and sent all the people who could be sent to Tonghui Lane. Even the imperial guards were alarmed and directly surrounded the entire Tonghui Lane. Want to go in? Sure, but first they had to search him and verify his identity. At this time, in the academy, Li Gang couldn't sit still. After saying a few words to the old scholar, he hurried to the tavern. As soon as he left, Cheng Chumo and the others couldn't sit still and jumped over the wall to leave. The old scholar was so angry that he threw the book in his hand and directly announced that today's class was closed. He also left. In the Zhang mansion, Zhang Yuyao knew that Jingshu was going to go. How could she sit still? She secretly slipped away from Mrs. Zhang through the back door. At this time, everyone in Chang and city had only one purpose, and that was to go to the tavern and see Zhang Feng's real face. Chapter 530. There were only 6 tables in the small tavern. At this time, Li Shimin and Wei Zheng, who came to congratulate him, had already occupied the best table. Li Chengqian and the others also occupied a table. The 3 tables near Li Shimin's table were all occupied by the people of the Jinwu Guards. The rest of the neighbors wanted to come in, but when they saw the cold faces and the graceful and luxurious appearance of Li Shimin and the others, they were scared. Only Zhang Shan forcibly dragged old He, Wang Pe, and the others to sit at the door. He was Zhang Feng's future father-in-law and half the owner of the small tavern. Now in the small tavern, there were imperial chefs from the palace. He couldn't get involved, but the people outside were basically the leftovers of the imperial kitchen. The Tang dynasty was an era that paid attention to etiquette. Even if you gave an egg or a basket of wild fish, there would be someone who would record it clearly for you. Butcher Zheng, who lives near the street, sends a whole pig, a total of 57 jin of meat and 12 jin of pig offal. Exine pastry shop, Zhang Mansion sends 3,000 strings of coins, 30 fat pigs, and 52 fat lambs. 30 pieces of brocade. 100 herb shop, Dr. Zhou sends money and 100 wen. Old Lu, who lives next door, sends a basket of wild fish and 30 eggs. Amidst the shouting, Zhang Feng was like a fool. He cupped his fist at the door and thanked them one by one with a grin. This was something that could not be helped. If he did not do it, then those damn neighbors and that muddle-headed father-in-law of his would kill him. This was also a kind of etiquette. There was no other way. He was all alone in the world. He didn't even have a mediocre person. In the end, under Zhang Feng's signal, Cheng Chumo and the others stood at the door and did it for him. They naturally didn't need to write a gift. If it was a gift, it would make the neighbors of Chang and city feel ashamed. Therefore, the things they brought were all carried into Zhang Feng's backyard by the servants. At this time, Zhang Feng's backyard was basically filled with gifts. Congratulations, congratulations. Brother Zhang, I've long known that you have an extraordinary bearing. Now, you've finally achieved meteoric success. When the time comes, don't forget about this old man. 100 herb yards old Dr. Zhou cupped his hands in greeting, grinning from ear to ear. Zhang Feng couldn't help but laugh. Why would Lao Tzu remember you? *CK. He's cursing me. However, Zhang Feng didn't have any evidence, nor was he in the mood to do so. He couldn't help but stare blankly at the commotion at the door. At this moment, all the noises on the street came to an abrupt halt. Cheng Chumo and the others also screamed and put their arms around each other's shoulders. At the door of the small tavern, Jingshu was wearing an emerald green dress. The maid behind her was looking at the surrounding people who kept staring at Jingshu with disgust. In her hand, she was still holding a guzheng wrapped in a brocade handkerchief. However, it didn't matter. What mattered was, beside Jingshu, she was holding a girl's hand. The girl was wearing a pink gauze dress like a lady from a noble family. However, at this time, the girl seemed to be very timid and at a loss. If it weren't for Jingshu holding her, she would have run away. However, even though she had her head lowered, the appearance that she displayed when she looked around caused a burst of exclamations. *CK. Isn't she Miss Zhang? Zhang Yuyao? I remember. She isn't Prince Zhang's fiancée? This Jingshu, the two of them actually came together? Interesting. This is going to be interesting. I heard that Prince Zhang has been shirking his responsibility. Now it seems, these people didn't hide these words. Instead, Zhang Feng heard them clearly. However, Zhang Feng also had a headache. He wanted to run. However, at this time, that damn Cheng Chumo and the others had already guarded the door and intentionally or unintentionally sandwiched him in the middle. Damn it. Let's see how Lao Tzu will deal with you when you go to Lao Tzu's academy in the future. Zhang Yuyao greets Prince Zhang. No, now I'm called Lord Zhang. Well, please come in, come in. Zhang Feng was at a loss. He had always been an iron-willed man. At this time, when he suddenly encountered such a situation, his brain was really a little stuck. I'm Jingshu. Greetings, Lord Zhang. Miss Jingshu, please don't make fun of me. Come in, come in. Ha. Look, Fengzi is actually blushing. Ha ha. Get lost. Zhang Feng shouted angrily. He was about to slip away when Li Shimin stopped him. Fengzi, come in. When Zhang Feng heard this, he cowered. It seemed that he couldn't avoid this today. In the end, Zhang Feng steeled himself and walked into the small tavern as if he was entering a banquet at Hongmen. As soon as he entered, Li Shimin waved his hand and gestured for Zhang Feng to sit beside him. On either side of Zhang Feng's empty seat were Jingshu and Zhang Yuyao. Fang Xianling and Du Ruhui instinctively gave up their seats. When Zhang Shan saw that his daughter's arrival actually made the table full of people who obviously came from wealthy families, he couldn't help but laugh happily. When Li Shimin saw Zhang Feng sit down, he said enigmatically, Fengzi, you're really lucky with women. Brother, you're so lucky, so lucky. Ha. Chapter 5:31. Zhang Feng's face darkened. Damn it. What should I do? Zhang Feng couldn't help but change the topic. He picked up the bamboo bottle of beer and said, Thank you all for coming to celebrate with me today. I, Fengzi, have to thank all of you for your love. Of course, if you have any difficulties in the future, you must come and find me. Come, everyone bottoms up. As he spoke, Zhang Feng raised his neck and drank. Zhang Yuyao was in a dilemma. She looked at Jingshu drinking with her face covered by a luo xiu. Then she looked at old Madame Wang and all the other women outside the door. They all raised their heads and drank. But when she smelled the smell, she felt a little nauseous. But she gritted her teeth, closed her eyes, and said in her heart, This was brewed by my husband. This is my husband's. Resisting the urge to vomit, he gulped down the water. In the small tavern, everyone was drinking while stealing glances at Zhang Yuyao. Seeing Zhang Yuyao drinking like this, everyone laughed and drank to their heart's content. Originally, Zhang Yuyao didn't say anything, but when she heard the laughter, she couldn't help it. Her face turned red with embarrassment. She hurriedly endured it, took out a sachet from her embroidered robe, threw it to Zhang Feng, and hurried away. Once again, Cheng Chumo and the others let out a series of wolf howls. Zhang Feng glared at them. Get lost, get lost, get lost. Good. Brothers, today Fengzi won the title of Viscount, and he can do that. Oh right, he got the Imperial Edict's permission. What is this? The heavens are looking after our Fengzi. Come, this is a little gift from me, Tainyo. You know I'm just a boor. Here are 3,000 strings of cash, which is my private money. Come, bring it in for Lao. No, bring it in for me. Cheng Chumo was about to say something bold, but Li Chengqian gave him a fierce kick. Only then did he remember that his father and the emperor were here, so he quickly changed his words. After Cheng Chumo finished speaking, Li Chengqian cupped his hands and bowed. Today, this little brother does not have anything else but a golden saber used by Turkic nobles that my father obtained from a Hu merchant. Today, I will present this to brother Zhang Feng. As he spoke, another attendant walked in from outside the door with a tray. On the tray, there was a shiny scimitar embedded with jewels. This blade was given to him by the son of Sheli Khan, Doritu, who was also known as the Little Khan, when he came to Chang and last time. One could imagine how precious this item was. Zhang Feng took a look at it and instantly fell in love with it. At this time, the neighbors inside and outside the small tavern couldn't help but exclaim in surprise when they saw the two people's congratulatory gifts. When Li Chengqian finished speaking, Li Shimin couldn't help but laugh loudly. He glanced at Qing Yaojin and the others, angering Qing Yaojin so much that he wanted to beat someone up. You F***king have so many spoils of war in the residence, and you're giving them money? F***ck your second uncle. You're F***king embarrassing Lao Tzu. Sheng Yu and the others couldn't help but squint their eyes and give their sons meaningful looks. Du Go was the third person to stand up after Li Chengqian sat down. At this time, Du Go solemnly bowed to Zhang Feng and said, "Brother Zhang Feng, although we called each other brothers before, I owe you a debt of gratitude for teaching me. Therefore, today, this student found a copy of the great scholar Kai Pa's calligraphy from my collection of ancient books. Firstly, it's a congratulatory gift, and secondly, it's a congratulatory gift to you, Miss Yu Yao, and Miss Jing Shu." As he spoke, Du Go took out a bamboo scroll wrapped tightly in silk under everyone's astonished gazes. When Li Shimin saw the bamboo scroll, his eyes couldn't help but stare. He also had a preference in this aspect. Being a civil and martial scholar was something that every emperor liked to do. However, Kai Pa's authentic work had been lost for a long time. Where did this brat come from? Li Shimin couldn't help but look suspiciously at Du Ruhui. It seemed that it was time to visit Du Ruhui's residence. There were so many good things, but he still cried all day. Poor? Was this called poor? When Jingshu saw the bamboo scroll wrapped in silk, although no one could tell what she was thinking, her sparkling eyes and the rapidly jumping pearls on her earrings showed how excited she was. As for Fang Xianling and the others, their eyes were burning. Zhang Feng pursed his lips. Although this was a good thing, it wasn't practical. Forget it, this was the first valuable thing the academy had. When the time came, who would dare to say that the academy didn't have a foundation? Lao Tzu would show them this plaything. This was the invisible realm of acting tough. Feng Zi, these are some of the works that my father obtained in Tubo. I heard that these are the collected ancient books of the great scholars of the previous dynasty. This, as Zhang Sun presented the gifts to them. At this time, Zhang Feng's collection of books in White Deer College was at least a cart's worth. What made Zhang Feng the happiest wasn't Li Qingxian's scimitar, but a piece of meteoric iron. It was a piece of meteoric iron that Zhang Sun presented to them. Motherf asterisk her. If this thing was made into a saber, then it would really be able to cut through iron as if it was mud. Not only that, there was a type of or inside, which they called the five-colored stone. This plaything was a good material for making ice. With this thing, drinking a can of cold beer on a hot summer day would be exciting just thinking about it. Chapter 5:32. With Cheng Chumo taking the lead, Li Shimin and the others could no longer sit still. Li Shimin searched his body for a while, and finally gave Zhang Feng a jade pendant from his waist. "Feng Zi, Lao Li, I didn't prepare anything good today. I only have a jade pendant with me today. I'll give it to you." Don't. Zhang Feng didn't know much about jade. But this jade pendant was engraved with the word Tang on the front and a coiling dragon on the back. In the middle of the coiling dragon was the word Li. The material of the jade was mutton fat jade. Although it didn't look like much, it was a dragon. What the hell? He didn't know much about jade. But this dragon, was it the standard item of all merchants in the Tang dynasty? Because he saw that Li Gan, Old Sun, and the others all had such a thing on them. He had also seen it by accident. He didn't take a closer look before, but now that he was holding it in Li Shimin's hand, he instantly felt that it was extraordinary. Old Sun and the others regarded this thing as a treasure. He didn't even want to see it before, but now Lao Li was giving it to him? Looking at the envious and shocked eyes of Old Sun and the others, Zhang Feng didn't dare to accept it. This thing was clearly an extremely precious item. No, Lao Li, you can't accept this thing. You can't accept it. Are we brothers? Li Shimin stared at him. This is something we used to travel outside the border in the early years. We don't need it now, but this thing is very meaningful. So, I'll give it to you. As long as you have this, at least you can go in and out of Chang and city freely. Zhang Feng was suspicious when he heard this. I was wondering what this was. It turns out that this thing is an exit permit? Zhang Feng muttered as he played with the jade pendant. Cheng Yaojin choked and almost spat out a mouthful of wine on Zhang Sun Wuji's face. This is a damn jade pendant for entering and leaving the palace. Motherf asterisk her. The Cheng Yaojin's eyes turned red when he saw Zhang Feng casually put it into his arms. He could only drink in silence. Cheng Chumo and the others couldn't take it anymore. How long had they been watching this scene? They could only sneak a peek at this thing when their father was asleep. If he dared to touch it when his father woke up, it would be a blessing from the heavens if his legs weren't broken. What is this? This was a permit to enter and exit the forbidden area of the imperial palace. In the entire Tang dynasty, there were only a handful of people who possessed it. Let's go out and propose a toast to the neighbors. Cheng Chumo finally couldn't stand Zhang Feng's actions. He slapped Zhang Xuan's straight face and dragged Wei Xiu out. Jing Shu also drank Zhang Feng's beer at this time, but now that she drank a bamboo tube, her cheeks were red. Prince Zhang, I don't have anything valuable, but seeing you and Mr. Li and the others like this, I can't help but want to play a song. Can I? But I've long heard that Miss Jingshu's zither music is unparalleled in the world. I didn't expect to be able to bask in Frengzi's glory today. To be able to listen to a song is also a blessing in life. Li Shimin didn't wait for Zhang Feng to speak and cupped his fists. He knew Jingshu. He had seen her before. Naturally, he also knew that Jingshu knew their identities. At this time, Li Shimin pointed to the scroll of Kai Pa's original work that Zhang Feng had casually placed on the table and said, "If Miss Jingshu can play a song today, then I'll give this to you on behalf of Frengzi. Also, I, Lao Li, will choose another day to give you a gift. How about it?" Jingshu heard this and secretly glanced at Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng rubbed his nose and laughed. He pushed the scroll in front of him in front of Jingshu, which meant that he agreed. Li Shimin saw this and couldn't help but laugh. Jingshu pursed her lips and said, "Thank you very much, Mr. Li." As they spoke, Jingshu got into position in the middle of the small tavern. The imperial guards were tactful. They got a merchant's blanket from somewhere and laid it on the ground. They even made space in the middle and placed a table, an incense burner, and some gauze curtains. At this time, Jingshu began to play. Dong. Then a melodious tune sounded. Everyone inside and outside the small tavern couldn't help but put down their chopsticks and look sideways. "Listen. Miss Jingshu is playing the zither." "But this is obviously Madame Zhang." "Damn, then where did you put my young lady? Are you looking down on our Zhang mansion?" "Good, very good, our Zhang mansion will remember you from now on." "Brother, don't be like this. Zhang Feng's official wife is Miss Yu Yao, but this Jingshu is also Zhang Feng's wife, right?" Anyway, Lao Tzu will remember you. Why are you quarreling? If you quarrel again, Lao Tzu will break your legs." Cheng Chumo listened to them to his heart's content and squatted at the corner of the small tavern to drink. However, when he heard the quarrel, he couldn't help but get angry. This roar instantly made everyone shut their mouths obediently. Zhang Shan looked at Cheng Chumo and the others, then looked at Li Shimin and the others who were dressed and had extraordinary bearings, and then looked at Jingshu. He could not help but sigh. "Although the heavens have not given me a son, they have given me a good son-in-law. I, Zhang Shan, have no regrets in this life. Come, everyone, on behalf of Zhang Feng, I thank you all for coming. Let's drink." What could Li Shimin say? Although the marriage between the Zhang mansion and Zhang Feng was not set in stone yet, the news had already spread like wildfire. What else could he do? He could only stand up and raise his bamboo tube. "Come, let's drink to the Tang dynasty and Zhang Feng." Chapter 5:33. Jingshu was playing High Mountain and Flowing Water. Although the majority of them were rough men, the feelings within the zither music as well as the unique state still caused everyone to be intoxicated by it. Zhang Yuyao didn't go far. She just stubbornly leaned against the corner not far away and watched Zhang Feng's every move in the small tavern. Although the Tang dynasty was liberal, it was also very conservative. Especially for a woman who had never left the attic, what did it mean to sneak out today? Although Zhang Yuyao also knew that Jingshu was seen by Zhang Feng, so what? Which man didn't have 3 wives and 4 concubines? Some men even had groups of wives and concubines. This was a common thing in the Tang dynasty. And she wouldn't cry with Zhang Feng because of Jingshu. As soon as she left the house today, she saw Jingshu coming from Chang and university, so the two of them walked together. Jingshu kept calling her sister, so Zhang Yuyao couldn't help but let down the last bit of guard in her heart. Maybe this was women. They could become good sisters with a single sentence, but they could also become mortal enemies because of a single sentence. But at least at this time, Zhang Yuyao was sure that she couldn't beat Jingshu. But with Jingshu by Zhang Feng's side, she didn't feel anything wrong. Instead, she felt a little relieved. At the very least, Jingshu had promised her that she would go to her residence to look for her every 3 to 5 days. That was enough. Although she also knew that Zhang Feng might not get married in a short time, it was the matchmaker's word and the parents' order. Moreover, she came in front of so many people today. Although Zhang Feng didn't refuse, it meant that Zhang Feng actually acquiesced. This was the thought of women in the Tang dynasty. Once it was decided, it would be a matter of life. At this time, along with the quiet sound of the zither, the melodious sound continued to spread. Li Shimin looked at Zhang Feng, touched his arm and asked, "Fengzi, when are you going to marry both of them?" Zhang Feng was stunned by Li Shimin's question. "Don't play dumb, boy. You see, whether it's Jingshu or Zhang Yuyao, they are both rare and talented women. Look at you today. If you didn't have your father-in-law to run errands for you, would you be so comfortable? This person, you have to have a root or you won't be at ease." Li Shimin said sincerely. Zhang Feng was silent. Li Shimin's words touched his sore spot. He had been in the Tang dynasty for so long. It would be a lie to say that he was not lonely. If he didn't have a temper with Lao Li and others, he really didn't want to get in touch with people. When the neighbors looked at him, they either had the attitude of an elder, worrying about this and that for him, or they were respectful and obedient. The slavery system bent the backs of all the people in the Tang dynasty. Therefore, Zhang Feng was also annoyed. He simply didn't want to go out of the small tavern, or he would be annoyed. At this time, facing the major event of his life, Zhang Feng was silent for the first time. He thought seriously and said, "Lao Li, I'll think about this matter. Let's wait a little longer. After all, I've said before that I have to start a career first, then start a family. You also know my abilities. If I'm targeted by bad people, won't I implicate my family? Therefore, in a situation where I don't feel safe, I can't get married. At least, I won't think about it for the next 3 years. 3 years later, when my White Deer College has improved, I can enter the imperial court with these students and become officials. Think about it at that time, a school with dozens of jinshi. What kind of shock will that cause? At that time, when you enter the imperial court as an official, the official position conferred by the emperor will at least not be lower than a 5th-rank official, right? At that time, when you're preparing to get married, what do you think this is? This is what it means to bring honor to your ancestors. 3 years, Li Shimin shook his head. If he was willing, not to mention a 5th-rank official, even the imperial court's assistant would be nothing. However, he didn't want to lose Zhang Feng. However, 3 years. In other words, he could only be brothers with Zhang Feng for 3 years? Li Shimin was a little disappointed, but on second thought, with Zhang Feng's character, even if he knew, what did it matter? This kid was originally careless and wasn't bound by the current etiquette. Among them, there was the old Xiaotsai, Jingshu, Li Chengqian and the others by his side. The matter of his identity being exposed might happen at any time. Therefore, Li Shimin had thought it through. This matter couldn't be forced. At the very least. At that time, with Zhang Feng's ability, it was possible to build a city on the same scale as Chang and city on Mount Shao. At that time, even if his identity was exposed, what did it matter? At that time, Zhang Feng would have already become the lord of a city. Although he wouldn't enter the imperial court as an official, at least there would be a lot less complicated things. When the time came, it would be up to Li Shimin to confer the title of a king or a marquis. At that time, perhaps they could still be brothers. However, this was all in the future. Li Shimin couldn't help smiling. "I'm thinking too much. By the way, now that the imperial edict has been issued, why do I feel that you're not happy?" Zhang Feng smiled bitterly. "How can I be happy? Although the imperial edict has been issued, it's still an imperial order, and it's still unknown how many people will come." Chapter 5:34. Chang and city was very big. People in the East Market basically knew that there was an extraordinary person in Tonghui Lane. They also heard about it in the West Market. But there were still some people who didn't know about it. For example, Yongyang Lane. This place was located at the very edge of Chang and city. It was basically a place where few people would come to. It was the kind of place where slaves gathered. In addition to the high walls and big tiles built by the government on the main street, behind these high walls, endless shacks formed the main style of Yongyang Lane. It was also jokingly called Shack Lane by the people who lived here. It was also called a pigsty by outsiders. It couldn't be helped. Those who could live here were basically slaves. Moreover, they were all old people who couldn't leave this place. At this time, in Yongyang Lane, near the corner of the city wall, there was a house made of bamboo and weeds. It could be considered a house. A man in his 20s was holding a notice in his hand. He was wearing a Confucian robe that had been washed so many times that it was starched white. It was even a little yellow, and it seemed like it would rot and tear at the slightest force. This notice was the imperial edict that the emperor announced in Zhang Feng Tavern today. Free. Free. Free tuition. The young man was so excited that his whole body was trembling. His name was Ma Zhou. He had been in Chang, and for 3 years in order to pursue his studies. In these 3 years he had raised horses for others, done odd jobs, and even worked as a study companion for a wealthy family to make a living. However, there was one thing he would do every day, and that was to send letters of recommendation everywhere. Although the imperial examination system was used in the Tang dynasty, the imperial examination at this time still required recommendations. In these 3 years, he grew from a hothead who didn't know anything and only cared about his dreams to a mediocre person who had to make a living every day. It wasn't easy for him to settle down in the government office. In this place where every inch of land was worth an inch of gold, he built a shelter with his own hands. However, the thought of studying still lingered in his heart. Although on the day of the opening ceremony of Chang and University, he still rushed forward without hesitation despite the risk of being kicked out by the host family. He couldn't get in. This was because he was not wearing a Confucian robe. He was only wearing the clothes of a servant. With great difficulty, he used the money he had saved up for 3 years to exchange for a set of Confucian robes in the black market. Although it was a bit shabby, it was still a Confucian robe. However, he received the news that the academy in Chang and named university had closed. Ma Zhou couldn't help but despair. He was about to reach 30 years old. When would this matter end? However, just as he was about to leave Chang, and in despair and travel to Shandong to see if he could join the Shandong gentry, someone took pity on him and tore a piece of paper from the bulletin board and gave it to him. What is this? The heavens didn't forsake him. Ma Zhou's eyes reddened as he held the notice. Kid, Tonghui Lane is bustling with noise and excitement today. The shopkeeper of the tavern, who is also the head of the White Deer College, is holding a banquet for guests. I heard that in addition to the 4 great demons of Chang, and there are also a few well-known wealthy people celebrating. If you want to go and become a disciple, now is the time. An old man squatting beside Ma Zhou said as he weaved straw sandals and pulled hay from Ma Zhou's thatched hut. Although the roof of the thatched hut was almost bald because of the old man, Ma Zhou didn't care. He hurriedly wanted to take the notice, but when he picked it up, he couldn't help but hesitate. Old man Lu, are you sure that head Zhang is holding a banquet for guests in Tonghui Lane? How can it be fake? You just have to walk out of this shack and go to the streets to take a look. Anyone who goes today will be able to eat a full belly. This old man just ate water. Before the old man could finish his long-winded speech, Ma Zhou had already rushed out. This was an opportunity. Although he might not be able to attract the attention of others now, if he could meet Zhang Feng today, perhaps this would be an opportunity. However, when he rushed to Tonghui Lane and saw that the streets were filled with banquets, he couldn't help but be stunned. Although it was still summer, everyone was wearing new clothes that they were only willing to wear for the new year. Although the clothes were very thick, and everyone was grinning and sweating profusely, what was this? This was their face. They were people from Tonghui Fong, and today, such a big thing had happened in Tonghui Fong. How could they embarrass Zhang Fengshi? When they saw Ma Zhou arrive, the old village chief, who was in charge of welcoming guests under the willow tree outside the lane, cupped his hands in salute. Please, please come in. Come in. As he spoke, he pulled Ma Zhou inside. Although Ma Zhou's clothes were shabby, in this era, anyone who could wear a scholarly robe would be respected. However, Ma Zhou hesitated. He smelled the tempting fragrance in the air. It was a fragrance that he hadn't smelled when he was a page boy in the house of a rank 7 official. He couldn't help but stop in his tracks. Student Ma Zhou is here to pay a visit to Mr. Zhang Feng, but, forget it, I'll come another day. Chapter 5:35. Ma Zhou retreated. It wasn't because he didn't want to eat something he couldn't even see on a normal day, but because of his pride. It was the pride of a scholar. He didn't want to see Zhang Feng when he was eating in such an environment. So he left. In a mansion not far from Tonghui Lane. Although this mansion couldn't be compared to the mansions of the high-ranking officials in Chang and City where every inch of land was worth an inch of gold, it was still considered well off in Chang and City. There were 2 words hanging above the mansion. Qian Mansion. The owner was a pawnshop owner from Chang and West City, Qian Yun. At this moment, angry roars could be heard from within the house. Unfilial son. You unfilial son. If you dare to go to White Deer College, Lao Tzu will break your legs today. Father. What's wrong with White Deer College? What's wrong with it? F***ck your grandpa. Why don't you take a look at what you're learning? Learn from a chef? Bricklayer? Pig rearing? If you dare to go, Lao Tzu will immediately go to the Chang and local government to sever all ties with you. Father. Get lost. If you want to go to the college, Lao Tzu from the Imperial College spent 1,000 strings of coins to bribe his connections. What's wrong with that? Do you have to go to White Deer College? Is your head squashed by the door? Master, Wan Li is, get lost. He's where he is today because of you. UF***Ker, Wan Li is where he is today because you spoiled him. Someone come. From today onwards, lock the young master in his room. Without my permission, no one is allowed to let him out. Ah. Oh my God. What sin have I committed? Wan Li, what's wrong with you? In the mansion, the mournful cries could be heard from afar. At the entrance of a house, there were large locks and wooden boards blocking the entrance of a room. A woman in a purple-black robe was pounding the ground and crying. Inside the door, there was complete silence. The woman pounded the ground and pressed her ear against the door to listen for any movement. When she heard that there was no sound in the room, she cried even louder. Son, don't take things too hard, that bastard Qian Tong isn't human. This is your own son. You can even bear to lock him up? It's good that my son is fine. If anything happens to him, I'll burn your house down. Mother, I'm fine. You should get up first. Your body is weak. Don't catch a cold. At this moment, a young man's voice sounded in the room. When the woman heard this, she hurriedly knelt on the ground and pressed her face against the wooden door. Son, you must not take things too hard. In this world, Mother only has you left. If you take things too hard, how can you let Mother live like this? Inside the room, a young man in a green and white robe leaned against the door and said indifferently, Mother, it's good that Father did this. Although he doesn't think highly of White Deer College, it's just the beginning. When the time comes, he will definitely let me out. The young man spoke very confidently. Looking at the notice, his eyes couldn't help but flash with a burning light. His name was Chen Wanli. Hearing this, the woman outside the door whispered worriedly again, Son, don't mention that place again. It's not a place we should go to. You don't know, but I've heard that it's a place prepared for those slaves and the 4 great devils. I've heard that those stubborn people in Chang and City have been forcibly sent there. Think about it, what can a bunch of stubborn people do? That's a fire pit. Don't mention it again. Okay. Qian Wanli didn't refute, which was rare. Although he wasn't a stubborn person, he had a few good friends who were in that circle. He had heard that those stubborn people were basically the sons of those high-ranking officials. How bad could a place where even the sons of high-ranking officials could go? Moreover, it was a place that the emperor valued so much. He didn't believe it. He had also run a money house and pawn shop with his father for a period of time. He was really fascinated by the so-called finance. Moreover, how could the place where the 4 great demon kings were located be an ordinary place? He had long wanted to see the stubborn upper circle, but those people didn't want to be associated with them. But now, this was an opportunity. What would it be like in 3 years? What would the bank's business be like then? The four demon kings all had considerable properties in Chang and city. If he could get in touch with them, how far would the Qian family's properties go? Not to mention, after 3 years, if he could make some achievements in a certain field, he could go to the Ministry of Works, the Ministry of Agriculture, or even the Ministry of Civil Affairs. That would be the real transformation of a chicken into a phoenix. This was an opportunity. This was an opportunity to jump from a lowly businessman to a high-ranking person. Who didn't have dreams? Who didn't have expectations for the future? Naturally, Qian Wanli had them too. Therefore, even if he had to fall out with his family this time, he would go, even if he had to sever all ties with his father. His intuition told him that the future of White Deer College would definitely make the entire Tang dynasty tremble. Because before it was built, it was already on par with the Imperial College of the Tang dynasty. Chapter 5:36. Quick! The Imperial Edict is here. Let's go. I heard that the Emperor issued an Imperial Edict in Chang. He said that a new White Deer College was built outside Chang. He said that anyone who goes to the college will be admitted for free. What? Is there such a good thing? That's right. Just a private school alone costs 100 strings of coins a year. Not everyone is qualified to go. What is this White Deer College in Chang trying to do? How can ordinary people like us get involved with it? Yes. I heard that the Emperor has issued an Imperial Edict. It's being posted everywhere in the Luozhou government office. I also heard about it when I entered the city with the caravan. I heard that the college's classes are amazing. It hasn't been built yet, but it's already on the same level as that Imperial College. Have you heard about this Imperial College? In front of a tea stall in the Luozhou government office, a naked man was rubbing his toes while holding a bowl and drinking tea in large mouthfuls. More and more people gathered around him. Not only the ordinary people, but also some merchants could not help but stop and watch. They did not believe that such a college existed in the world. Not only was it free, but it was also helping the ordinary people. The sun must have risen from the west. Burly man, is what you said true? When the burly man heard this, he wiped the sweat off his face and flung it away. Instantly, the crowd could not help but step back. The burly man glared at him. How can this be false? You all know who my boss is, right? He's the Duke of Chen. A few days ago, he set off from Chang and to deliver some goods back to Luozhou. Along the way, he met someone from the palace. When my boss asked, I happened to be taking a dump in the thatch not far away. That's why I heard it for real. If you don't believe me, you can go to the government office and take a look. It's probably crowded with people now. Hearing the burly man's words, everyone could not sit still. Although everyone somewhat believed the words of the burly man, they couldn't help but choose not to believe the man's sloppy appearance. After all, this fellow was 2F** king disgusting. More and more people heard the news. There were more and more people rushing to the entrance of the mansion. Because they were poor. Moreover, if he wanted to get rid of his poverty, he could only go to the study hall. Now, such a great thing had actually happened. How could this not make them seethe with excitement? The bartender of the tavern couldn't take it anymore. He threw away the triangular hat on his head and ran away. The strong men who worked as coolies in other taverns couldn't take it anymore. They all ran towards the entrance of the mansion like crazy. Basically, after hearing the news of the Imperial Edict, every family with a young adult or a 12-year-old child hurriedly ran to the gate of the manor. Although they couldn't read the words, there were people here who could read them. You only need to give them a coin, and they will tell you everything clearly. As for the person who paid the money and got the real news, he ran away with a giddy face. As he ran home, he was grinning from ear to ear. My family is going to have a top scholar. My son has finally made a comeback. God bless, my family finally has a good seedling. And in the house of a certain village outside Luozhou city. At this moment, an old man and a young man were squatting in the shade of the mud brick courtyard, weaving straw mats and bamboo baskets. On the wall behind them and in the courtyard, there were piles of woven baskets and bamboo products. There were grasshopper-like trinkets. There were also bamboo lanterns and so on. However, it seemed that business wasn't good. Many of the bamboo products were densely packed with black things. However, this was the livelihood of the family. Although the things in the courtyard could be sold for a lot of money, the things in front of them were only enough to feed the family. Old Lai, head of the family, something big has happened. Something big has happened. At this moment, on the plains not far away, a woman carrying a large basket hurried over. The middle-aged man named Old Lai's hand paused. In an instant, a bamboo strip pierced into his thumb. Old Lai raised his dark face full of frowns and angrily glared at the woman. He roared, "Damn woman, it's not even noon yet. How many baskets have you sold? You're back already?" Old Lai exploded with anger. He almost picked up the hatchet beside him. The young man squatting beside Old Lai, named Lai Ji, glanced at the woman in puzzlement. He lowered his head and continued weaving the bamboo characters in his hands. The woman not far away waved her hands even more vigorously. She seemed to be afraid of the middle-aged man. The woman was not old. She was about 30 years old. However, under the whips of life, her face was full of vicissitudes. Her face was full of fly droppings, which made her look even older. Head of the family, something big has happened, something big has happened. Today, I heard that the emperor in the imperial palace gave us a great benefit. Old Lai, who had already raised his hatchet, was startled when he heard this. What benefit? Is the rent waived this year? Or is it food? While they were talking, the woman had already come to Old Lai's side. Without saying anything, she threw away the basket on her shoulder and knelt on the ground. She hugged Lai Ji and cried, "Son, my Lai family's ancestral grave is finally smoking. You can go to the school that the emperor personally ordered to open to study." Chapter 537. Lai Ji was 17 years old this year. He once dreamed of being like the scholars in the city, wearing clothes that would make the girls in the brothels in Luozhou scream in fright. But he was poor. He was so poor that all he had left was to weave and sell baskets all day. It was fine in the past. His father got married when he was old and had him when he was 40 years old. Previously, when he saw that the cooperative was established, good days were coming. His father wanted him to go to school, but he didn't expect that a plague of locusts would cause so much trouble that there was nothing left. He couldn't even afford the rent this year. He had also made plans with a few of his good friends to become officials together when the time came. Hao Chujun was especially happy. However, because of a plague of locusts, everyone seemed to have met with disaster. However, Lai Ji was a little confused when his mother suddenly hugged him and cried, "Mother, what's wrong with you? Old woman, what are you talking about? Speak properly. Go make a bowl of porridge for your mother." Oh. Lai Ji remembered that his mother had left early in the morning after cooking porridge. It was already past noon, so she must be hungry. He hurriedly wanted to leave, but Madame Lai hugged him. "No, I'm not hungry. Now, from today onwards, don't do such vulgar things." Old Lai's eyes widened when he heard that. "Old woman, if you don't explain yourself today, Lao Tzu will skin you alive. Come on if you have the ability. You only know how to weave baskets. Do you want your son to be like you in the future? Look, what's this?" This was the first time in 17 years that Madame Lai was angry. She even threw a ball of crumpled stuff at Old Lai's face. Old Lai couldn't recognize words. He was stunned when he saw the densely packed words and a red thing. He recognized this thing. It was the thing that was posted at the city gate or the entrance of the government office. But, old woman, what's this? Tell me. Lai sure sobbed as she hugged Lai Ji and cried loudly. Early this morning, someone came from the palace. I heard that His Majesty had decreed that all the children from poor families should go to the academy in Chang and to study. He also said that they would not need to pay and would be provided with food. When they graduate in 3 years, they could be given an official position. At the very least, they would be able to work in the royal family's industry. For this, I spent a copper coin to find out more about it. Old Lai automatically filtered out the 1 copper coin. Although that 1 copper coin was basically a family's daily rations, what about now? Compared to a single copper coin, he was willing to let go of this opportunity to let his only son and his old Lai family rise to prominence. Old woman, you talk nicely. I'll get you some rice. Have some food first. Slow down, slow down. Oh right, chicken, you mother of asterisk cur, go buy some offerings and kill an old hen. Later, we'll go to the ancestral grave to worship our ancestors. He was ecstatic in his old age. Even when he walked, there was wind behind him. My son is going to be an official. My son is going to rise to prominence. Haha, my Lai family is finally going to have a great talent. Haha, so old father was right. My Lai family really did have a great talent. Lai Ji was speechless. But this matter really had a huge impact on him. So much so that he wanted to go to the city immediately to see if what his mother said was true. Moreover, he wanted to find Hao Chu-jun and the others immediately to see if they would go. Perhaps they knew about this matter. But before he went out, he met Hao Chu-jun and the others who were hurrying over. Lai Ji, what are you doing? Quickly pack your things. We're going to Chang'an. Brother Lai Ji, good luck has fallen from the sky. Ha, it's really good luck. There's a white deer college in Chang'an City. Do you know about it? Let's go. Although the construction of that place hasn't started yet, the emperor has issued an imperial edict. What does this mean? This means that the emperor has set his sights on this place. Then, we'll be able to become officials. The three of them ran breathlessly to the Lai family as they ran. Their voices were heard by Lai Ji's father immediately. Hearing this, Lai Ji's father hurriedly turned around and handed the wad of paper in his hand to Hao Chu-jun. Look at this. Are you sure this is Li Erlang's imperial edict? Hao Chu-jun nodded without looking. Yes, it's exactly this. Now, the entire Luozhou city is filled with this thing. I even heard that this thing... Haha, it's true. This woman didn't lie to me. My Lai family is finally going to have someone who can read and write and can become an official. Haha. After receiving the affirmation from Hao Chu-jun and the others, Lai Ji's father danced like a madman. Woman, quickly go and get me a jar of wine. I want to drink wine today. All right, cook those pickled wild rabbit meat for me. Today is our family's new year. Lai Ji felt that everything had gone crazy today. Old father had gone crazy. Old mother had gone crazy. Hao Chu-jun and the others had gone crazy. Even he had gone crazy. Why did all of this seem so unreal to him? Was there really such a good thing in this world? Chapter 5:38. Hezhou. It was close to the border of Tuyuhun. It was also the place that suffered the most from the locust plague. There were Qinling Mountains above and Ba Mountain below. On the right was Qilian Mountain, which was separated from Tuyuhun. It was like a basin that covered the damned locusts. The people inside couldn't get out, and the people outside couldn't get in. Fortunately, Li Laoer was wrong. It was the current emperor who thought of a clever idea to save Hezhou from a terrible situation. However, after the locusts left, what else was there on the ground except for the soil? On the originally fertile land, the sturdy farmers were all gone. Even the leaves on the trees were all bald. All of a sudden, this fertile place turned into a desolate place. There wasn't even much grain stored here. This was because there were places nearby that produced grain, and the new grain was about to be harvested. The old grain in the storehouse had already been sold long ago, or turned over to the treasury. At this moment, on the streets of Hezhou City, the people were huddled on both sides of the street listlessly. They stared at the road, waiting for something. Clang, clang, clang. Clang, clang, clang. At this moment, the sound of gongs rang out incessantly on the street, instantly attracting everyone's attention. The emperor has issued an imperial edict. Everyone, come out and listen to the imperial edict. There's an academy in Chang. Not only is it free, but it will also provide meals. From 12 years old to 30 years old, all of you can enroll in Chang and White Deer College. Come, everyone come out. The emperor has issued a great news. Come out. As the bailiffs of the Hezhou provincial governor's office shouted in the streets and alleys of Hezhou, everyone understood. After the crowd was stunned for a moment, the young men couldn't help but burst into an uproar. Oh my God! No wonder I had a dream last night. I dreamed of becoming a Xianxia. So it's F asterisk King real. F asterisk see, there's such a good thing for free? No, listen carefully. Why is that academy different from what we heard? Didn't they say that the academy only teaches literacy? Why are there so many tricks? The young and strong men who were standing under the archway discussed and were instantly dumbfounded. He hurriedly chased after the magistrate and asked, Sir, what's going on? Wasn't this school a place to study? Why are there so many paths? I don't know. But I heard that this thing is clearly written in the imperial edict. Not only can you learn how to cook with this thing, you can even enter the imperial kitchen and cook for the emperor. If you can learn other skills well, you can even work in the Ministry of Works or the Ministry of Agriculture. With the Yamen runner's explanation, everyone finally understood. All of them widened their eyes. So, this isn't an academy either. However, the man glared and threw a notice at the young man's face. Look for yourself. If you don't study and can't read, do you think His Majesty would spend so much effort to think of you? You still have to read this book? Otherwise, when you enter the palace and the emperor gives you something, how can you survive in the palace if you don't understand it? While speaking, the Yamen runner left. There were too many people around, and he was annoyed. However, the people who stayed were all dumbfounded. All of them widened their eyes and looked at each other. What does this mean? This academy is a place to cultivate talents for the palace? Damn it. That's a good job. And the emperor didn't mention his identity. That is to say, whether it's us slaves or those children of high officials and dignitaries, they can all go there? A smart person said so. In an instant, everyone's eyes couldn't help but burn. What was this? This was the emperor's son who took pity on them. If they didn't go, wouldn't they be letting down the emperor's love? Moreover, this kind of good luck might not happen again in the future. Moreover, he didn't say anything else. He would provide food for them. That was enough. For the poor people, as long as they were given food, they would be willing to dig feces for them. And it was to dig feces for the palace. In the middle of the crowd, there was a strong, dark-skinned young man who was taller than a normal person. He listened to the crowd, but he only remembered 2 words in his mind. Provide food. Involuntarily, a burning light burst out from the young man's innocent eyes. Father, I'm going to the academy. I'm going to study in Chang'an. We're going to have a martial scholar in our family. The innocent young man ran all the way out of the gate of River State City and then rushed toward a forest. In the forest not far away, a hunter was holding 3 pheasants under his arm and slowly walking down the mountain. At this moment he heard a roar. When the hunter heard that, he couldn't help but move his ears. That was the voice of his son. He couldn't help but shout, "Monkey, what are you doing? I'm here." In the distance, the hunter saw a small black dot jumping under a tree. He saw the small black dot looking at him, waving the green foxtail grass in his hand and shouting, "Father, Lao Tzu is going to study in Chang'an." Chapter 539. Chang'an City was surprisingly quiet these days. The expected crowded scene didn't happen. Not to mention Go Zi and the others, even the old Xiaotsai, old He, and the others did not come to the tavern. Other than going to work in the winery next door, they were all in a hurry to go home. This made Xianxia and the others confused. They were dumbfounded. Like fools, they squatted in front of the tavern and looked at the people who came and went. At this time, Xianxia and the others were covered with mud. The construction site of Daoshan Academy had started. In the past 3 days, Li Qingxian personally found a top feng shui master, Yuan Tiangang, to go to Daoshan Mountain to see the feng shui. It was amazing. Yuan Tiangang just didn't stop talking. Tut, 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 it's amazing. This place is not as good as the dragon vein, but it is in the belly of the dragon. It belongs to the terrain surrounded by the dragon. This terrain can produce talents. But Xianxia and the others just stared with their eyes wide open, unable to see what was so good about this godforsaken place. There was no family here. How could this be a place for talents? This was clearly a place for talents, okay? But this was not right. There was not even a grave around. How could this be a good place? But who was Yuan Tiangang? The number one faker in the Tang dynasty? No, he was the number one faker in the Tang dynasty. If he could say so, it made sense. Otherwise, why would the emperor keep him in the palace? After choosing the location, Cheng Chumo simply sent out 3,000 city guards stationed outside Chang and city. They all came to chop trees. In one day, except for a few big trees that needed more than 3 people to hug, all the trees were cut down. At this time, the construction team that Li Chengqian found before also hurried to the new battlefield. However, Zhang Feng locked himself in the room and didn't come out as if he had been possessed. It was obvious that he was drawing the layout of the new college. Was there a need for a layout? In Cheng Chumo's words, he just needed to build a house according to the size of the Imperial College or Chang and City. This place was at least 50,000 mu. However, what he gave Cheng Chumo was a pair of supercilious eyes, a smirk on the back of his head, and the word idiot. This made Cheng Chumo and the others even more curious. Wasn't this just an academy? Could it be that there was more to this? At this time, they had returned from the construction site and were already exhausted. But this damned guy actually locked the door of the tavern and hid in the room for God knows what. Do you guys think that Feng Zi and Jing Shu are? Zhang Sun Chong put his 2 thumbs together. This caused Du Go to look down on him. Do you think Feng Zi is as lustful as you and Iron Bull? Miss Jing Shu is now in the Chang an academy. How can he be like you? Zhang Sun Chong rolled his eyes. He rubbed his nose and waved his hand, saying, "Then tell me, what can Feng Zi do in the room? It can't be that she's hiding and crying because no one came for 3 days, right? I'll cry your ass off." At this time, Zhang Feng's tired voice was heard from the tavern. While they were talking, the door opened. The others couldn't help but poke their heads in and take a look inside. Cheng Chumo even wrinkled his nose. Li Chengqian gave a fist salute. Feng Zi, the academy is right above the call in the east of Shao Mountain. All the trees have been harvested, and now the craftsmen are laying the foundation. Take a look at this. Here, I'm done. Just tell them to follow this. There are plenty of stones there. Don't be stingy. Zhang Feng interrupted Li Chengqian and threw a piece of paper to Li Chengqian. Li Chengqian frowned when he saw it. On this piece of paper, there were lines drawn in a disorderly manner. Moreover, it seemed to have been drawn on with sharpened charcoal. There were scratches on it. Not only that, although it spoke a lot, overall, one could still roughly tell what it was. It was a circle of walls attached to the mountain. But what was the blank space in the middle? Why weren't the houses connected? Did he want to use a corridor? But that didn't seem right. Li Chengqian and the others stared at the drawing and couldn't help but ask, "Feng Zi, why is your drawing the same as the one I built before? Taishan Temple outside the city is a little different?" Li Chengqian almost blurted out. Fortunately, there was a temple called Taishan Temple outside Chang and city. Although it wasn't big, it was on the way to Shao Mountain. It was only built in the last few years. Zhang Feng waved his hand without raising his head and said, "You can learn this in the textbooks in the future. This is called architecture. If you have nothing to do, go to the construction site and wander around. Don't stare at this place all day and ponder blindly." Seeing that Zhang Feng had spoken, Cheng Chumo spread his hands and sat down on the chair, groaning. What's the point of building? The imperial edict has been issued for 3 days. Look at this. Even Guzi and the other bastards don't come. What's the use of this? In my opinion, no, Iron Bull. Zhang Feng shook his head. He looked at the door and said, "Even if only one person comes, I will teach him. Don't I have you guys?" Chapter 540. They could not help but look sullen. This imperial edict basically contained all the words that could be written on it. It was the longest imperial edict they had ever seen in their lives. In the past, the imperial edicts were basically written in thumb-sized fonts. But Zhang Feng's imperial edict, no, it was a pardon to be more precise. Basically, it took him 3 imperial edicts to explain everything he wanted to say clearly. But even so, no one came to ask. They did not know what Zhang Feng was insisting on. Wasn't there an academy in Chang? If you can't do it, why don't we buy a piece of land next to the Chang, an academy, and build a research institute there? Do we have to go through so much trouble to build such a thing in such a distant place? It would be a miracle if anyone went there. No, Fengzi, it's not that we want to scold you. Look at the streets of Chang. Let's not talk about other people. Basically, we can't even see the people who came here last time. Go and take a look at the streets now. Look at Guzi, Juzi, and Oldie. They all seem to be very busy. What is this? They are all hiding from you. Zhang Feng was stunned when he heard that. No way? In the past few days, he had been thinking about whether to build the academy in the style of the Tang dynasty or design it according to the style of the 3-story buildings in the future. He really did not pay attention to this matter. Feng Zi, tell me the truth. Is there something wrong with this imperial edict? Or is there something wrong with your teaching philosophy? Although we think this thing is really awesome, you have to know that not everyone will be like us. Li Qingqian reminded him. Zhang Feng could not help but be led astray. This matter was really a little strange. Originally, this set of philosophy was developed by combining the current atmosphere of the Tang dynasty, the system of slavery, and the way of technical schools. Logically speaking, this thing should be very popular. Why did no one come? Li Gan, have you guys heard any news recently? Li Qingqian spread out his hands and smiled bitterly. It's good to hear someone scolding you. But the strange thing is that it's as if no one knows about this matter. No one mentions it at all. Not only that, when everyone sees us, it's as if we're the gods of plague. Just who did we offend? Wei Shuyu also complained. Not only that, didn't we pull in a lot of stubborn disciples before? Now, this group of bastards didn't even want to go to Chang'an Academy. They were either pretending to be sick, or they were taken away by people from their mansions. They said that their son was stubborn and unworthy of entering the academy. When Zhang Feng heard this, he could not help but be dumbfounded. What was going on? How did everything become like this? Could it be that Lao Tzu had miscalculated? The people of this era indeed had a deep-rooted ideology, which was that everything was inferior and only reading was superior. But wasn't there someone teaching in Lao Tzu's academy? Was this necessary? *CK thinking about it carefully, could it be those things about finance and chefs? That's right. *Ker, Lao Tzu forgot one thing. Zhang Feng suddenly remembered something. That was because the people of this era looked down upon the most were the butchers and merchants. Lao Tzu actually forgot about this? However, Zhang Feng knew what kind of sensational effect it would cause in the Tang dynasty once these people finished their apprenticeship in the future. It could be said that it would change the overall food style of the Tang dynasty and the overall trade of the Tang dynasty. But the premise was that how could this be accepted by people? Zhang Feng read the emperor's imperial edict carefully 3 times and was sure that there was nothing wrong with it. Then where did the problem come from? Zhang Feng took out the imperial edict again and studied it carefully. Then he made up his mind and said, *CK, Lao Tzu doesn't care anymore. No one will come? You guys better be careful. Whoever graduates from Chang'an University is not allowed to step into Lao Tzu's academy for the rest of their lives. No one will come, right? Zhang Feng's eyes flashed with a touch of madness. If no one comes, Lao Tzu will come and show them how Lao Tzu will make all of you Jinshi in 3 years. When the time comes, 5 Jinshi in one school. I think, not to mention the Tang dynasty, even if it was 100 years ago and 100 years later, no one could do it except for Lao Tzu's academy. Zhang Feng's bold words did not arouse their enthusiasm. However, Cheng Chumo sniffed. He elbowed Li Qingqian. Do you think Fengzi is really crazy? 5 Jinshi in one school, and Lao Tzu can't even read a few big words. Does he want me to be a Jinshi? It wasn't just Cheng Chumo himself who didn't believe it. Of the 5 people present, no one believed that Cheng Chumo could pass the Jinshi exam. But Li Qingqian and Du Go looked at each other. They thought it was impossible at first. But after thinking about it carefully, if it was someone else, it was really impossible. But it was hard to say for this crazy person. However, they knew one thing. In the future, their lives would be really difficult. Chapter 541. As expected, retribution came. After Zhang Feng confirmed that even if only one person came, he would still set up the college. Cheng Chumo and the others had a hard time. Zhang Feng hired 3 large carts to transport all the food and clothing from the tavern to the construction site on Xiao Mountain. How could he say that he wanted to share the joy with the people? But this time, the heavy responsibility of building a simple temporary residence fell on Li Chengqian and the others. But how could the imperial craftsmen let the crown prince do it? They hurried over to help. Using the chopped wood and the large stone that had just been transported, they mobilized more than 100 people and used half a day to build a house. Although it was rushed, the craftsmen didn't dare to be careless. Undergone Ziyuan's angry scolding, although it was a temporary residence, it was built according to the standards of the imperial garden. At this moment, Zhang Feng and the others sat in the stone house and instantly felt that it wasn't so hot anymore. The floor was paved with wooden planks. Although stepping on them was like stepping on the planks of a boat, at least it was moisture-proof. Feng Zi, what do you think of this house? Do you want our college to be like this in the future? Li Chengqian looked at Zhang Feng and asked. Zhang Feng curled his lips. It's okay, but you're good. Why are the craftsmen acting like they've taken aphrodisiac? I thought it would take at least 3 days to build this. He originally wanted to give these guys a difficult problem, but he didn't expect them to finish it in half a day. Feng Zi, what do you want to do with our White Deer College? Li Chengqian didn't want to talk about this matter. The more he talked about it, the more likely he would give himself away. He hurriedly changed the topic. If White Deer College is built according to the Imperial College, then this blueprint of yours. I don't understand. Zhang Feng shook his head and sat down beside Li Chengqian. You don't understand this, right? What do you think of our college compared to the Imperial College? We're short of people. No, we lack everything. Not to mention the students, we only have you as a teacher. When the time comes, the Chang, an academy will need an old Xiaotsai. By the way, Feng Zi, how long have you not been to the Chang, an academy? Du Go wanted to ask something, but when he heard about the Chang, an academy, he could not help but think of a person. The Crown Prince's junior tutor, Li Gang. He wondered if Zhang Feng knew that this person was in the academy. Zhang Feng scratched the back of his head. Well, aren't I busy? The old scholar didn't say anything, so I didn't go. That is to say, you haven't been to the academy since it opened? Cheng Chumo and the others were filled with disdain. Zhang Feng couldn't help but feel anxious. Lao Tzu is always thinking about making money. Without money, how can the academy continue? Moreover, they didn't even get Lao Tzu's permission and secretly brought in 30 stubborn people. Lao Tzu said that the academy is yours to run. Do you really think that place is your playground? If it weren't for the old scholar, I think the few of you would have turned Lao Tzu's academy upside down. Zhang Feng directly threw the responsibility to them. He had said long ago that Li Chengqian and the others would be in charge of the Chang and academy. Because the academy's original intention was not to run a formal academy. After the emergence of the Academy of Science, Zhang Feng had already given up on that place. It could not be said that he had given up. The Chang and University was not given up. It was left to those bookworms and become the White Deer College's Chang, an office or a courier station. In this way, Chang and Xiao Mountain would have a connection. However, Zhang Feng did not understand why they were talking about the Chang and University. He could not help but ask, why are you talking about this? Well, do you know Li Gang? Li Gang. Zhang Feng heard this and could not help but stare. He looked at Li Chengqian and said, you mean the Crown Prince's junior tutor, Li Gang? Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. He knew this person. In history, he resigned 3 years after Xingguan, and then focused on studying poetry. Before he died, he wrote a total of 3 books. However, why mention Li Gang at this time? What about Li Gang? Didn't we receive news a while ago that Li Gang had resigned from his post? So I used my connections to keep Mr. Li Gang in the Chang and academy. This time, it was Zhang Feng's turn to be completely dumbfounded. Li Gang in the academy? And he, as the dean, did not know anything about it? What kind of logic was this? However, this was not what he was thinking about now. What he was thinking about was that in history, Li Gang resigned at the end of the 3rd year of Xingguan. After that, it was the time for Kong Yingda and Lu Deming to shine. However, the problem now was, what time was it now? It was the beginning of July of the second year of Xinguan. Could it be? His appearance had unknowingly accelerated the historical process of the Tang dynasty? If that was the case, then everything would have to be sped up. Chapter 542. Thinking of this, Zhang Feng continued to ask, "Then tell me, do you know why Li Gang resigned?" "Well, I'm not sure about that. Maybe it's because he learned about Chang and university and felt curious. Then he was moved by our sincerity," Cheng Chumo said pretentiously. Zhang Feng curled his lips. But in the end he could only be defined as an old scholar. Although the old scholar didn't reveal his real identity, he was dressed like a great scholar at the opening ceremony of the academy that day. He also had the ability to make Yu Shernan and the other three sign their names on the plaque. He was definitely an old scholar. Zhang Feng thought that with his ability and fame, he couldn't have stood at the entrance of the academy and held the fort. There was only one person who could have done it: the old scholar. He knew that in the Tang dynasty, or in the ancient times, if one wanted to open a school, not only must he have the seal of the government, but also the seal of the Ministry of Rights, the Ministry of Works, and other departments. There was also an important step, which was to destroy the school. But what about that day? Besides that one person, who else could it be? And after that? Zhang Feng didn't notice all this at first. But now that he thought about it carefully, this old scholar was really awesome. This way, Zhang Feng could leave the old elementary scholar in Chang and with peace of mind. Moreover, this made Zhang Feng think that he couldn't be the only teacher in the academy. Otherwise, he would be exhausted to death, and he wouldn't be able to cope. The best way was to recruit more people. Not only did he have to recruit students, but he also had to slowly gather some great scholars. With these great people, there was no need to worry about White Deer College not being able to shine in the future. Even though there were only 6 people in the academy, including him, it didn't matter. When the imperial examination came out, there would be 5 scholars. No, once the 6 scholars appeared, they would be a living signboard. At the thought of this, Zhang Feng could not help but have a plan in his mind. Don't worry about Chang and university for now. Leave it to Mr. Li Gang and the old scholar. I'm not worried. Our main focus now is on White Deer College. Once the college is established, we'll bring them over. Then, the reputation of the college will naturally rise. Seeing Zhang Feng recover from Li Gang's attack so quickly, and in such a casual manner, Li Chengqian and the others couldn't help but be stunned. Originally, they thought that they would have to spend a lot of effort to persuade him to accept Mr. Li Gang's matter. After all, Li Gang's reputation was out there. But he didn't expect Zhang Feng's reaction to be so calm. This wasn't normal. This was the Crown Prince's junior tutor, Li Gang. They wanted to show off to the whole world. Unexpectedly, this guy seemed to have expected it. Their fists punched the air, and it was hard to imagine how uncomfortable it was. However, they didn't investigate the old scholar's background like Lao Tzu did. Or perhaps, they didn't think that the old scholar was in that direction. Otherwise, they wouldn't have dared to say what happened today even if they were beaten to death. The few of them were rebuffed, but they didn't care. Cheng Chumo said proudly, "Well, Fengzi, I used countless connections these days to get the construction plan of the Imperial College. Although our place is remote, we still have to fix what needs to be fixed. I think that our mountain gate should be as big as the city gate of Chang and City. Also, the design of our house should be similar to that of the Imperial City." Hearing this, Li Qingqian couldn't help but nod. "Fengzi, Tainyo is right. Leave this matter to me. When the time comes, our college might become famous and the emperor might visit. What if the college isn't grand enough? Although we don't have many people now, once the house is fixed, there will naturally be people. What's wrong with you? You want to make this place into an imperial palace? You're really not afraid of death. Let me tell you, don't worry about this house. I've already thought about it. It's fine to talk about it here, but if those craftsmen hear it, you'll definitely lose your heads." Zhang Feng pointed at them and shouted, as if he hated the fact that they didn't fight for it. He waved his hand and said, "Who said that Lao Tzu's college has no people? Just wait and see." Lao Tzu has already come up with the second set of plans these days. The imperial edict should have played its role. However, the reputation of our Chang and university is a little, so the people in Chang and are watching. So, it's time to move on to the second step of the plan. Hearing Zhang Feng's words, the few of them looked at each other and couldn't help but be confused. They asked in unison, "What did you think of?" "What did he think of?" "He." Zhang Feng laughed. In an instant, the few of them couldn't help but stare at him with their eyes. This guy laughed so sinisterly. He must be up to something. This time, Zhang Feng had been holding back for so many days. Could it be that he was really planning this big move? Li Qingqian and the others couldn't help but continue to ask, "Fengzi, tell us, what big move are you planning?" Chapter 543. Li Chengqian and the others had already figured out Zhang Feng's usual tricks. Once this kid chuckled, it was definitely a big move. Once he talked about something seriously, it was basically because he was thinking about it in his heart. Either he was not sure about it, or he was thinking of a way. Once this kid started to show off, it meant that he had already thought of a way to say what he wanted to say. Moreover, it was a big circle. That was why Zhang Feng was smiling so cheekily. Li Qingqian and the others immediately perked up. "Fengzi, you've seen our current situation. There are only 6 of us on this barren mountain. Once these craftsmen leave, this big college will probably be haunted. Don't hold it in anymore. Tell us. I want to hear it." Zhang Feng rubbed his hands cheekily and placed a piece of charcoal that had been sharpened into the shape of a pencil on the table. He folded his arms and lay on the tiger-skinned recliner, looking at them. When they saw this, their eyes instantly turned red. "You don't want to tell us? Let's go, let's go. Boring, boring." Sigh. I thought Fengzi would come up with something. That's it? Motherf ***, this kid is definitely up to no good. Let's go, let's go. Zhang Feng was dumbfounded. Wait. ***, when did Lao Tzu say that he won't tell you? Can't you let Lao Tzu brew for a while? Brew my ass. As Cheng Chimo spoke, he was about to take off his boots and hit Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng then said, "The locust plague in Chang, and is over, right?" His ambiguous words instantly stunned Li Qingqian and the others. Cheng Chimo raised the smelly boots up high, causing them to sniffle. Zhang Sun rushed over, snatched them, and threw them out. Instantly, the smell in the room became slightly better. One of Cheng Chimo's followers picked up the boots for him. Li Qingqian pointed at that person. Scram. That person recognized Li Qingqian. He hurriedly shrunk his neck and ran away. It was too King smelly. Zhang Feng pinched his nose and looked at Cheng Chimo's feet. There was a big black thing in this guy's feet. Zhang Feng's stomach couldn't help but twitch. Cheng Chimo didn't feel anything. After taking off his boots, he felt very cool. Sitting on the chair like that, she even raised her leg and shook it. Li Chengqian couldn't take it anymore and slapped Cheng Chimo on the head. "Go and wash Lao Tzu's feet. Otherwise, you're not allowed to take another step into this house." Cheng Chimo ran away with his tail between his legs. He had no choice. Since the crown prince had spoken, how could he dare to defy him? He simply took off his boots and rubbed his feet in the mud at the entrance of the house for a while. He then let a few of his lackeys smell it. After confirming that there was no stench, he ran into the house barefooted. Only then did the smell in the house fade slightly. Zhang Feng let out a long breath and hurriedly ran to the window. He leaned against the window and breathed in the fragrance of the soil. Only then did he say, "The locust plague in Chang, and should have passed." However, this period of time is originally the season for the people to harvest their food. But the food in this field, you know it too. Li Qingqian and the rest didn't understand what Zhang Feng was trying to say. They hurriedly asked, "Then, what does this have to do with our school?" "It has to do with it. Of course it has to do with it." Zhang Feng said with certainty, "Long ago, I told your father to stock up. Didn't I get a lot of things from that Zhenla king's silly son? I know that. You actually scammed that Crown Prince Zhenla until he was only left with his clothes. You're also impressive. But I'm very curious. What did you say that time? Li Qingqian couldn't help but laugh at the thought of Prince Junla's awkward expression when he came to visit him. Zhang Feng waved his hand. It's nothing to worry about. Let's not talk about it. What I want to talk about is that this grandson is really rich. Do you know how much I sold those things? I sold them for a total of 15,000 strings of cash. And usually, do you think Lao Tzu is really short of money? Cheng Chumo's eyes widened. You're still talking about this? When our fathers went to your place that time, didn't you kings scam them to death? Scram. That's the money they gave Lao Tzu for his drinks. It's my brother. Zhang Feng was about to explain when Li Qingqian waved his hand and interrupted Cheng Chumo. He asked, Then what did you do with the money? Buy food. Buy food? Li Qingqian was dumbfounded. If that's the case, doesn't it mean that you used all the money earned from the car factory and the brewery to buy food? Li Qingqian was dumbfounded. Why did he buy so much food at this time? But he couldn't help but think of something uncertain. Could this kid be thinking of the same thing as what he told his father last time about stocking up on food? That would be terrifying. How much food did this kid stock up on? Why didn't he take it out before? Zhang Feng touched his nose and looked at them with an incredulous expression. Don't think about it. I only stocked up a little. It's only 20,000 dawn of food. PFFF. Chapter 544. They were dumbfounded. 20,000 dawn. Damn it. What did 20,000 dawn of grain mean? What did it mean? Although the emperor had stockpiled some grain before, it was only tens of thousands of dawn. Although the emperor had misunderstood Zhang Feng's words, more importantly, how could Chang and Guanyi have any extra grain at that time? If they made a big move, they would definitely attract Guanlong's attention. Therefore, they could only inform the state governments of this matter secretly and let them stockpile grains secretly. But now that the locust plague was over, the shortage of grain finally broke out in Chang. Now, the emperor had basically not eaten for 3 days because of this matter. He was so worried that his hair turned white. It was impossible to get grain from outside the Guanyi. After all, this locust plague was national in nature. However, the disaster in the south was much smaller. Although there was grain in the south, it would take at least half a month or a month to harvest and transport the grain from the south. After all, along the way, there were disasters everywhere. No one dared to sell all the grain. This was what worried Li Shimin. And now, one could imagine what these 20,000 dawn of grain meant to Chang. It meant that at least 20,000 people could be saved from starvation. 20,000 people. Li Qingqian's eyes were about to turn red. He wished he could grow wings and fly back to the palace to tell his father about this matter. Fengzi, are you sure you have 20,000 dawn of grain? Li Qingqian grabbed Zhang Feng's hand subconsciously. This matter was too important to him. His current position in the court was somewhat awkward. Although he was the crown prince and had always been very serious in his work, he didn't have anything that could make the other officials sit up and take notice of him. This was a very dangerous thing to do. If at this time, Zhang Feng felt that way. Not only did Li Qingqian tightly grab both of his hands, his entire face was trembling with excitement, and his gaze was as if he was looking at a peerless beauty. Zhang Feng's hair stood on end, and his entire body was suddenly covered in goosebumps. If it weren't for his strong restraint, he would have kicked Li Qingqian's third leg, until it exploded. Du Go couldn't bear to watch any longer. He nudged Li Qingqian. Li Qingqian did not react. In the end, Zhang Feng could not hold back the disgust in his heart. He kicked Li Qingqian over. I didn't expect you to be this kind of person. *CK. Glass actually appeared in the Tang dynasty? *CK. Damn it. What the hell was this? Zhang Feng secretly swore in his heart that he would definitely keep a certain distance from this grandson in the future. This was too king annoying. Although Li Qingqian had fallen flat on his face, he still crawled up with an unsightly expression. He didn't even bother to pat the mud off his buttocks. He was about to step forward again when he was stopped by Zhang Feng. Stop, if you have something to say, we can talk. Be good, or else Lao Tzu will ask your father to bring you back. Zhang Feng pointed at Li Qingqian and shouted. Only then did Li Qingqian come back to his senses. Zhang Sun hurriedly went forward to smooth things over for Li Chengqian. That, Fengzi, don't blame him. You also know that these days, after the locust plague, everyone has tightened their belts and is lacking in food. But 20,000 dan of food suddenly appeared in your place. Tell me, who wouldn't be excited to the point of going crazy? So, Fengzi, you can only talk about this in front of your brothers. Don't tell anyone else. This is something that can take people's lives. Outside the door, Gan Ziyuan seemed to have something to report, but at Zhang Feng's door, he saw something that he would never forget in his life. The sons of the High Dukes and the Crown Prince were all standing in front of Zhang Feng, the shopkeeper. And that kid actually kicked the Crown Prince to the ground? F*ck this. F*ck this. Did Lao Tzu see a ghost? Gan Ziyuan couldn't help but lie on the ground as if his whole body was shaking. However, his eyes were still fixed on Li Chengqian. He saw Li Chengqian stand up as if nothing had happened and ask that kid in a tone as if he was asking for advice. Then what did he say? He even asked the emperor to drag the crown prince back? Oh my god. Was Lao Tzu dreaming? He was the crown prince. F*ck this. He couldn't take it anymore. Lao Tzu couldn't see it. He had to treat it as a dream. If the crown prince were to see this, then at the very least he wouldn't be able to keep this pair of shields. At the very least, not only would he lose his livelihood, but his brothers would also lose their lives here. After all, since ancient times, what hadn't the royal family done to cover up their shame? Right now, Gan Ziyuan's legs were trembling. He was lying on the ground, and his head was buzzing. No, Lao Tzu didn't see anything. He didn't see anything. He didn't hear anything. Lao Tzu didn't come here. But where is this? What is Lao Tzu doing here? While he was talking nonsense, Gan Ziyuan hurriedly ran away. Along the way, he left behind the smell of urine. Chapter 545. Inside the room. At this time, Li Chengqian had finally recovered. However, the few people in the room did not notice that Gan Ziyuan was outside. Otherwise, how could it be so good? However, at this time, Li Chengqian suppressed the thought of robbing Zhang Feng and said, Fengzi, do you know that although the government has stepped in and forcibly suppressed the grain price, it has skyrocketed to 12 copper coins per caddy? There is even a faint trend of price increase. How are you going to deal with the 20,000 dawn of grain in your hand? Also, how come I don't know what channel you used to buy the grain? Shouldn't you tell me about this channel? After all, you also know that I have a big family and a big business. Get lost. Zhang Feng could tell that this guy was still clinging onto the 20,000 dawn of grain and wouldn't let go even if he died. This grain was bought by Lao Tzu from that barbarian merchant. That big fool thought that Lao Tzu bought it at a high price. He really thought that Lao Tzu was stupid. Hee, but that old guy is probably looking for me all over the streets of Chang and city right now. Beard. Li Chengqian was relieved. The grain of the Tang dynasty was basically reported in the treasury. Except for the grain of the big families and the grain of the foreign merchants, basically all the grain of the Tang dynasty was recorded in a book. And this barbarian merchant was one of the most uncontrollable people. Every time these fellows came to the Great Tang, as long as they saw something that could earn them money, they would do their utmost to hoard it. Perhaps it was because the grain was about to be harvested and the price of old grain would inevitably drop. So when the price was about to drop, they met Zhang Feng. It was unknown whether this beard was unlucky or not. Why did he meet Zhang Feng? How good would it be if he met this crown prince? Fengzi, what are you going to do with the 20,000 dawn of grain? This was what everyone was looking forward to the most. As for where the grain came from, it was not a problem. The key now was that there was a shortage of grain in the Tang dynasty. If the person in front of them wasn't Zhang Feng, then these fellows would have definitely snatched it. However, they didn't dare to snatch Zhang Feng's things. If Lao Tzu found out about this, they would be in deep trouble. This was also what the few of them were most worried about. Under the trend of high benefits, people could do anything. There was also a saying that went, treasuring a jade ring becomes a crime. If the 20,000 dawn of grain were to be known by others, then things were going to get really interesting. Zhang Feng snapped his fingers. Then he said slowly, since I only let you know today, You can rest assured that the 20,000 dawn of grain will definitely be stored in a place that none of you will ever think of. And this matter, other than the few of you, only that hapless bearded man knows about it. But now, that bearded man will probably never find me. Are you sure? If that kid were to play dirty and expose this matter, Fengzi, do you know what kind of impact these 20,000 dawn of grain would have? Li Chengqian cautiously said. Killing intent had already appeared in the depths of his eyes. This bearded man couldn't be allowed to live. However, Zhang Feng's next sentence made him feel completely at ease. Don't worry. That bastard doesn't even know Lao Tzu's name, let alone my face. Lao Tzu put on makeup and a fake beard. He even sprinkled cumin powder on himself before making the deal with him. Now, even if Lao Tzu were to stand in front of him, he definitely wouldn't be able to recognize me. What a joke. Wasn't he just speaking in a foreign accent? Just casually saying, work hard, would undoubtedly lead the conflict to the Japanese. When the time came, even if the bearded man wanted to find trouble, he would find trouble with the Japanese. Oh right, the few of you, leave some for me in Chang and for the next few days. This grain is our chance to make a name for ourselves. Once this batch of rations appears, the reputation of our White Deer Academy will be thoroughly resounded. Therefore, in the next few days, the few of you better hurry up and build the academy. When the number of people increases, you will have plenty of time to work. I reckon that if we don't talk about other things, you won't even be able to sleep if you want to. Also, Li Chengqian, go back and ask your father about the chicken and duck army I saw outside Chang'an City. If he hasn't dealt with it yet, bring it over for me. It will be of great use when the time comes. Oh right, I want those pigs too. It would be best if you could find me a few blacksmiths. Li Chengqian and the others were dumbfounded. Their faces were filled with question marks. Grain, chickens, ducks, pigs, and blacksmiths? What was he going to do? They could understand that chickens, ducks, pigs, and grain were all related to eating and drinking. However, blacksmiths were, others didn't know, but Li Chengqian did. No one knew about this profession in other places. But in the palace, it was a unique profession. Every person who wanted to be a eunuch had to undergo the cleansing of their body by a craftsman before they could enter the palace. Suddenly, the few of them couldn't help but touch their crotches and take a step back. Was this bastard thinking of? Chapter 546. How could Zhang Feng not notice their actions? He rolled his eyes and said, Don't worry, you can find this craftsman. He won't be used on you, so don't worry. Also, this matter must be kept a secret. Oh right, if you can find an old eunuch, that would be great. Damn it. This was not targeted at them? Right now, there were only a few of them here. And not only did he want to find a craftsman, but he also wanted to find an old eunuch. Not only did he want to beat people, but he also wanted to beat ghosts. Hey Fengzi, we're brothers, aren't we? Are you provoked by this imperial edict? Don't take it too hard. That's right, Fengzi. What's there to take it too hard? Isn't it just an imperial edict? Isn't it just that you didn't find anyone? If that's the case, I'll go back today and tell my father to ask Lord Zhang's son again to see if he can get another imperial edict. What do you think? At first, Zhang Feng was quite touched by their words. But when he listened to them, why did the meaning change? Zhang Feng couldn't help but wave his hand. Get lost, your second uncle. Lao Tzu asked Ning to assassinate. Just do it and be done with it. Why are you still chattering here? You'll find out about this craftsman in the future. Also, I have something to tell you. No, Fengzi, you have to make it clear when the time comes. Li Chengqian interrupted Zhang Feng and pressed him down on the recliner. He said, We know a little about this grain. You want to use the grain as bait to lure those students. I can understand the chicken and duck, but the pig. To put it bluntly, there aren't many people who would eat this pig. Apart from the poor commoners who would eat a little, and the pork that you've processed with special methods to make it edible, the pork on the market, let alone the rich, even those who have a little money would only buy it to feed their cats and dogs. The pork of the Tang dynasty was very pungent. There was also a strong earthy smell, so in terms of meat, mutton occupied the main position. As for pigs, except for those that were born within 3 months, the rest of the pigs were basically bred or used as sows. Therefore, in the Tang dynasty, not many people ate pork. But even so, those poor people were still scrambling for it. But they couldn't afford anything else. He could only get a little of this stuff, and then use the big pot that was used to boil bath water to boil a big pot. Then he added some flour paste, cumin powder, and a big handful of the bitter salt from before the fine salt came out. Only then was it barely edible. Other than that, not many people were interested in this pork. Those with money went to buy mutton, chicken, or duck. Who the f*ck would buy such a thing that smelled so bad? But at this time, what did Zhang Feng want these pigs for? They had heard from Li Shimin that Zhang Feng was going to use a large number of pigs to deal with the locusts and then sell them. At first, they just thought it was a joke, or maybe he just wanted to buy some small pork. But now, those pigs were more ferocious than the locusts. Wherever they went, the ground was as if it had been plowed. Not to mention the locusts, even the rotten things in the ground were eaten up. This time, not to mention the little piglets, all the pigs were shiny and smooth. Otherwise, why would Butcher Zheng have the money to send over a whole fat pig? And to entertain the people on the whole street? This little bit of meat, if it weren't for the 10 sheep sent by the Zhang mansion, and the 50 sheep that Zhou Dafu and the others brought along when they came, how could it be enough? But now, Zhang Feng actually wanted to buy something that couldn't be sold and couldn't even be given away? Before Li Qingqian couldn't help but be confused. Zhang Feng smiled mysteriously. For this matter, just do as I say. Those pigs will definitely be of great use in 3 months. So don't worry. As for those grains, chickens, and ducks, I naturally have a use for them. Isn't there a famine now? And our 50,000 mu of land is barren. Isn't our college not famous enough? But if I use all of these 20,000 dawn of grain to give porridge, what do you think the effect will be? Buzz. Li Qingqian and the others' minds couldn't help but explode. 20,000 dawn of grain. All of it to give porridge? What the hell? Feng Zi had really gone crazy. If he used these 20,000 dawn of grain for other things, even if he sold them at the original price, it would still be acceptable. But now he actually wanted to give porridge? But if you want to give porridge, then so be it. This is understandable. You want to spread the name of White Deer College. But what's up with the chickens and ducks? And those pigs? Do you want to keep these things here in captivity? Do you know that outside Chang and city, those things that even the emperor was worried sick about were almost given away as gifts? Now, even if they were given away, no one would dare to accept them. Most importantly, these things were too much of a waste of grain. Who could afford to rear 57,000 chickens, ducks, and thousands of fat pigs? Who could? Chapter 547. Li Qingqian left Shao Mountain in a daze. Then he rode his horse and galloped back to the palace. The first thing he did after returning to the palace was to jump into the lake in the imperial garden to calm himself down. He carefully recalled what Zhang Feng had said before, then ran to Taiji Palace in a daze. The moment he entered Taiji Palace, Li Qingqian heard Li Shimin's angry roar. He couldn't help but take a deep breath and wait outside the imperial study. After a while, the people from the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Agriculture walked out of the imperial study listlessly. They bowed to Li Qingqian and left in a hurry. Li Qingqian then hurried into the imperial study. Li Shimin was furious. A few days ago, he had heard about the famine. Although they had already prepared for it and it was not to the extent of a major famine, the people could only eat a bowl of porridge that was as thin as water for a meal. It was still okay in the past because there were wild vegetables and weeds. But now, they were all eaten up by the locusts. Even the shoots from the willow trees had been eaten up long ago, not to mention the weeds that had just sprouted from the ground. In the eyes of the people, they were now delicacies. Li Shimin naturally opened the grain storage to provide relief for the people in such a situation. But today, the people from the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Agriculture reported that there were only 40,000 dan of grain left in Chang. What should they do? What else could they do? Empress Zhangsun couldn't help but reduce all the grain and food standards in the imperial palace to the lowest. But what could they do? Li Shimin had been eating porridge for 3 days. He was so hungry that his chest was sticking to his back and his eyes were seeing stars. But just now he received another document. It was about the grain from outside the pass. It would take at least half a month for it to arrive. As for why, although the people from the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Works didn't say, how could Li Shimin not think of the reason? If he was targeting Guanlong, wouldn't Guanlong target them as well? What's more, Jiangnan was the largest source of grain in the Tang dynasty, except for Guanzhong and other places. And it just so happened that this place was the territory of the Guanlong people. Above them were the territories of the Chui clan from Shandong, below them were the territories of the Chui clan from Bowling, the Chui clan from Qinghe, the Lu clan from Fanyang, the Li clan from Zhao County, the Zheng clan from Xinjiang, and the Wang clan from Taiyuan. These were the most prosperous places in the Tang dynasty. But if this matter alarmed them, and if the 5 families joined forces with Guanlong, then that was why Li Shimin was so angry. He did not know how long Li Shimin had been standing there. Li Shimin flicked his sleeve and said, "What are you doing here?" "Father, I have an important matter, speak." Li Shimin waved his hand and asked with a frown. Li Chengqian looked at Xiao Gizi and said, "Today, I found out from Zhang Feng that he has 20,000 dan of grain in his hands." Silence. Silence. There was a deathly silence. Li Shimin was drinking tea, but when he heard the words 20,000 dan of grain, he could not help but be stunned. Not only was Li Shimin stunned, but Xiao Gizi was also stunned. Xiao Gizi, who was in the imperial study, was also stunned. After a while, Li Shimin asked with a hurried breath, "Is what you said true? Brother Zhang Feng really has 20,000 dan of grain in his hands?" "Everything I said is true. I dare not lie." Bang! The teacup in Li Shimin's hand trembled and fell to the ground, smashing into pieces. "Why don't you tell me, why does Brother Zhang Feng have so much grain in his hands?" Li Shimin could not help but be excited. Right now, the grain in the pass was about to run out. Although 20,000 dan of grain might not be much to the tens of thousands of people in Chang, but at least it could let these tens of thousands of people survive for 10 more days. When the time came and the 70,000 dan of grain in the treasury were added, the grain shortage in Chang and could be solved in an instant. What was this? This was good news from the heavens. "Imperial Father, although it's true that Feng has 20,000 dan of grain, this kid is crazy." Li Shimin was a little confused. He waved his hand and hurriedly walked down from the dragon throne. Xiao Gizi hurriedly brought a stool and placed it in front of Li Chengqian. Li Shimin sat opposite Li Chengqian and asked, "Tell me slowly. What's going on? What's wrong with Feng? Was Zhang Feng crazy?" Li Shimin absolutely did not believe it. If this kid was crazy, then Li Shimin would definitely slaughter him. But this kid cherished his life so much, how could he be so reckless? Li Shimin did not believe it. Li Chengqian then said, "Imperial Father, the situation is like this. The imperial edict has been issued for 3 days, but there is no news at all, so we are thinking about how to recruit people." "But Feng said he has a way." Li Shimin furrowed his brows. "What does this have to do with the 20,000 dan of grain? If he wants, then I can issue an imperial edict. Can't that do it?" Li Chengqian laughed bitterly. "Imperial Father, this son said the same thing at that time, but Zhang Feng said he thought of a better way." "What way?" "Feng said he wants to distribute porridge in White Deer College. He wants to use all 20,000 dan of grain to distribute porridge, and he wants to gather them outside Chang and city. He wants all the chickens, ducks, and pigs that no one knows what to do with. Not only that, he also wants craftsmen." Chapter 548. Li Shimin was dumbfounded. It was easy to understand if it was something else. After all, it was chickens and ducks. With Li Chengqian saying this, Li Shimin suddenly thought of an idea. That's right. The chickens and ducks of the Tang dynasty were now idle, and they needed food to feed them. However, food was what the Tang dynasty lacked. Now, no one would want these things even if they were given away. But wasn't it because there was no food to feed them? Looking at the fat and strong chickens and ducks, Li Shimin instantly patted his head. It was also very good to mince all the chickens and ducks and put them in the porridge. Not only could it reduce the amount of food, but it could also let people eat meat and increase their physical strength. This Fengzi really could come up with a brilliant idea. Little Gizi, write an edict. Tell all the prefectures to follow the standard of giving porridge. Add 5 chickens and ducks to each pot. They must use as much food as they need. Whoever dares to embezzle food will be executed by me. Little Gizi hurriedly bowed. As you wish. Go on. While speaking, Li Shimin glanced at Li Chengqian. Li Chengqian said with a constipated expression, Father, you forgot 2 things. Fengzi not only wants chickens and ducks, but also pigs. He wants all the pigs that you are going to burn. And he wants a blacksmith. Tell me, these 2 things are completely unrelated. This Fengzi, if he is not crazy, then what is he? This, Li Shimin was also dumbfounded. He couldn't understand what Zhang Feng was thinking now. Although the pork is a bit smelly, at the very least, it can still be swallowed by the commoners during the famine if it's processed. But why did he want a blacksmith? Did he want to open a course in this field in the academy? Li Shimin couldn't understand Zhang Feng's current approach. Perhaps Fengzi really was crazy. However, the 20,000 dawn of grain and the porridge distribution event had solved Li Shimin's big problem. Although he didn't know what Zhang Feng wanted to do, Li Shimin simply didn't think about it anymore. After all, he knew that this kid wouldn't do that kind of loss-making business. Perhaps he was holding back some evil thoughts in his heart. Alright, I understand. Just do as Zhang Feng says for the time being. Although that kid seems a little unreliable, the things involved are really things that you need to learn seriously. You may leave. Your son will take his leave. Li Chengqian smiled bitterly. He knew this would happen. However, if she didn't inform Imperial Father, there would definitely be a big problem when the time came. At the very least, it would make Imperial Father feel at ease. However, just as Li Chengqian walked out of the Imperial study and arrived at the Imperial garden, he bumped into Li Yuan, who was sitting on a gauze curtain and strolling blindly. The moment Li Yuan saw Li Chengqian, he hurriedly waved his hand. Gone, Li Chengqian was startled when he heard this and hastily went forward to pay his respects. Imperial grandson Chengqian greets retired emperor. All right. This is the Imperial garden. There's no need for such mortal etiquette. I seem to have been startled. I haven't seen you for almost a month. Kid, you haven't come to my place for a month. What have you been busy with? Imperial grandson has recently been learning things in the academy opened by brother Zhang Feng, so I forgot to pay my respects to retired emperor. Please forgive me, retired emperor. That kid. Li Yuan laughed brightly. Afterwards, he got off the carriage and walked into the pavilion in the middle of the lake in the Imperial garden. He sat opposite Li Chengqian. Just as the 2 of them sat down, a palace maid brought over fruits from Zhenla. Gone? Tell me about that kid Zhang Feng. What has he been up to recently? Didn't I hear that kid bought that piece of land in Shao Mountain and even set up some White Deer College there? How is it now? This? Replying to retired emperor, everything is proceeding smoothly. Then there's the recruitment of students. I have high hopes for this academy. This impenetrable shield and that indestructible spear, I really want them. When the time comes, I'll also go to the academy. If I can become a teacher, that would be pretty good. Haha. Alright. It's rare to see you. Come. Let's play? Li Chengqian was speechless. Li Yuan waved his hand. In an instant, several of his concubines swayed their waists and walked over. They sat opposite Li Yuan and Li Chengqian. The current poker cards not only far surpassed the quality of the first time he played cards with Zhang Feng in the tavern. Although they were also made of paper, at the very least, they were more durable. With all the cards in place, Li Yuan seemed to have gotten a good hand. He urged these people to play while saying, "Why did you enter the palace this time? Did that kid run into some kind of trouble? You're a dignified crown prince. Don't look for your father for everything. After all, he's worried about the food shortage." Imperial grandson remembers retired emperor's teachings. It's just that kid stockpiled 20,000 dawn of food and prepared to give out porridge at White Deer College. He also needs the tens of thousands of chickens, ducks, and pigs that Chang and has stockpiled. He also needs a carpenter. That's why Imperial grandson can't make a decision, so I looked for father to make a decision. Hearing this, Li Yuan was instantly stunned. What did you say? Chapter 549. Li Yuan was completely dumbfounded. He had seen people who were out of tune before, but he had never seen someone so out of tune. You said you were awesome and daring with 20,000 dan of grain to give out porridge. You wanted chickens, ducks, and pigs. These were all small matters. It could be said that you helped the emperor solve a big problem. After all, those things consumed an astronomical amount of grain in a day. But what did you want a blacksmith for? At this moment, Li Yuan's poker game was no longer as fragrant. He really wanted to know if this Feng Zi had really gone crazy. A few days ago, he heard that the emperor had issued a decree praising his White Deer College. Moreover, it had only been a few days. Logically speaking, if it was someone else, wouldn't they be laughing in their sleep? But this kid? He always did things so unconventionally. Who was Li Yuan? With a slight turn of his head, he understood what Zhang Feng wanted to do. He was just trying to build up the reputation of his new academy. But you're just trying to create momentum. What are you trying to do by creating these things? Could it be that you want to? Li Yuan couldn't help but glance at Li Qingxian's crotch. In an instant, Li Qingxian's face turned red. Fine, I won't tease you anymore. If you are busy, you can go do it. When I'm free, I will sign a contract with the White Deer Academy and stay there for a period of time. I heard from Mr. Yuan that the White Deer Academy is a good place to nurture outstanding talents. Find a good place for me to build a villa. That little brat won my villa. Imperial grandson will remember. Li Yuan waved his hand and spread out the cards in his hand. He said, but we won this round. Pay up. Li Qingxian finally escaped from Li Yuan's evil clutches. As soon as he returned to the Eastern Palace, he saw Cheng Chumo and the others. They were already waiting there and arguing about something. Seeing Li Qingxian enter, they hurriedly asked, how was it? Did the emperor say yes? Li Qingxian sat down on the soft couch. He said, what can he say? Of course he allowed it. However, what's Feng Zi up to this time? He wants that Saw Zhu and some blacksmith. I don't understand at all. Isn't that so? I just met Shuyu's father and asked him about it. When Wei Shuyu and the others heard this, they hurriedly asked, then what did Prime Minister Wei say? Dugo shrugged. What else can I say? At that time, my father and the others were all there. When I said that, they all laughed. What else could they say? Right now, all they can think about is food. They don't know what Feng Zi wants to do. Alas! Motherf ***, this Feng Zi is going to do something big this time. They instantly sat down on the chairs. Li Qingxian rubbed his forehead. Shuyu, go to the Department of Internal Servants tomorrow morning and ask if there are any old eunuchs who want to return home recently, or those who have just returned home. Don't forget this matter. Bring him to see me tomorrow, I want to. Wei Shuyu glanced at Li Qingxian. Don't you know to call your little eunuch to the Department of Internal Servants? Why must you wait until tomorrow morning? Aren't you tired? Li Qingxian slapped his forehead. Someone come. Quickly take the Crown Prince's order to the Department of Internal Servants and ask if there are any old eunuchs who have just returned home recently. Everyone waited for about an hour. Just as Cheng Chumo was snoring, a little eunuch from the Eastern Palace hurriedly led in an old eunuch with white hair and a beard. The old eunuch's back was arched, and he held a thin book in his arms. This old servant greets Your Highness the Crown Prince. Rise. This prince asks you, are there any old eunuchs in the Department of Internal Servants that want to return home recently? Replying to Your Highness the Crown Prince, there are. In a month, this old servant will return home. Oh! Hearing this, the others couldn't help but be interested. Li Qingxian waved his hand and dismissed everyone. Then he said, rise. This prince asks you, do you still remember the matter of losing your virginity? The old eunuch's wrinkled face couldn't help but twitch. If anyone else had asked this, he would have fought with his life on the line. In any case, he was already over 70 years old and had lived long enough. But this was the Crown Prince. He didn't dare. To people like him, this was a great humiliation. Moreover, he was asking in front of so many people. The old eunuch hesitated for a long time before saying in a muffled voice, replying to Your Highness the Crown Prince, this old servant still remembers. Although this was a great humiliation to him, the crown prince had asked, so he didn't dare to hide anything. Don't worry. This prince also understands your difficulties. Don't worry. When the time comes, this prince will only arrange for a courtyard to live out his old age in peace. The old eunuch was ecstatic. This old servant thanks the crown prince for his grace. This old servant is 76 years old this year, but when this old servant was 12 years old, I was sold into the palace and lost my virginity. Although it's been 60 years, this old servant still, get to the point. This prince asks you, if someone were to find a carpenter for no reason, what would they do? And besides the imperial palace, where else would you find such a person? The old eunuch was dumbfounded. This? Your Highness the Crown Prince, forgive this old servant's stupidity. This old servant doesn't know why, but that's not called a carpenter. That's called a master of virginity. Besides the imperial palace, there really isn't such a person outside. Basically, all the old eunuchs in the Department of Internal Servants know how. Hearing this, Li Qingxian's eyes lit up. So you know how to do it too? Chapter 550. Dong. The morning bell slowly sounded in the dark depths of the imperial palace. On the streets of Chang, and the moment the morning bell sounded, 2 lanterns were lit on the doors of each official's mansion. Fast horses and palanquins were already prepared at the gate of the mansion. They were only waiting for the dazed officials in robes to get on the horses or the palanquins before they rushed to the Vermilion Bird Gate. When everyone entered the Vermilion Bird Bridge, there were basically no people in the market on the bridge. Even if there were people, there were only a few new types of barbecue. Basically, they had eaten until they vomited. However, the smell of barbecue still made the officials with empty stomachs buy a bamboo barrel of beer and a few big chicken legs to eat and drink as they walked. When they reached the gate of the political announcement hall, their stomachs were round. When they entered the political announcement hall, the officials were all shocked by Li Shimin, who was sitting on the dragon throne. Seeing that Li Shimin was in a daze, everyone closed their mouths tightly, lowered their heads, and stood in their positions to wait. Everyone knew that the emperor could be like this. It was all because of the locust disaster. Although the emperor used a strange technique to control the locust disaster was stopped. However, the food was really gone. If it wasn't for the shopkeeper of the small tavern in Tong Huifeng. That's right, Zhang Feng. Moreover, this name was like thunder to the ears of all the officials. Not to mention that he personally received the emperor's imperial edict. He was also bestowed the title of Viscount. The school he opened was also of the same level as the Imperial College. What was this? Everyone didn't understand. They couldn't understand the meaning behind it. But they knew that this person was highly regarded by the emperor. After all the officials had arrived, Xiao Gizi said something in Li Shimin's ear and shouted at the top of his voice, "Morning court! Kneel down! Long live the emperor! Give him a seat!" Li Shimin waved his hand. "Today, I don't want to hear any memorials about where to ask for grain. What I want to hear is which disaster victims have been treated, which disaster has been solved, or whether the grain from Hunan province has been delivered. As for other matters, I won't discuss them today." Li Shimin decisively interrupted everyone's thoughts. However, even though they said so, it was obvious from the constipated look on their faces that they had already thought of a countermeasure for today's morning court session. However, Li Shimin did not give them the chance. "I've learned that the grain from Hunan province will arrive in Chang in half a month. Minister of Agriculture, tell me, can the grain in the Chang and local treasury last for half a month?" "This, Your Majesty, the total population of Chang and its surrounding areas, plus the refugees who have flocked here in recent days, is less than 100,000, but it's not far from that. However, there are only 70,000 dawn of grain in the Chang and local treasury. What's more, the price of grain has skyrocketed every day in recent days, which has caused panic among the people in Chang. Therefore, I feel that these 70,000 stones can only last for less than 10 days. 10 days. Although Li Shimin knew it, he could not help but feel his heart sink when he heard it again. However, on second thought, if he gave out porridge in the same way as Zhang Feng did, if everyone could control their diet every day, would it last for 15 days? After thinking for a while, Li Shimin could not help but shake his head. It sounded simple, but when he really thought about it, it was absolutely impossible. How much time would it take to gather all the people in the city? Moreover, if he did so, wouldn't it be tantamount to announcing the grain shortage in the world? Therefore, Li Shimin sighed and said, because of this, the Empress has reduced all the expenses in the palace to the minimum. Even I eat porridge every day, just to get through the grain shortage as soon as possible. But my strength is too small, so I know that each of you has at least dozens of acres of land, and at most tens of thousands of acres of land. Alas! Li Shimin stopped at the right time. However, how could they not understand the emperor's meaning? I've already reduced expenses, and I eat porridge every meal. It's up to you. What should they do? They also had a big family to feed. What should they do? Your Majesty, this old official is willing to donate 30 dan of grain to help the disaster victims. This old official will donate 50 dan. This old official will donate 150 dan. This old official will donate 300 dan. Starting with Wei Jing, Du Ruhui, Fang Xianling, Qing Yaojin, and the others all spoke one after another. How could they not know the emperor's meaning? Last night, they all knew about what happened to Zhang Feng. They expected that the emperor would do something this morning. Who would have thought that they would really guess it right? Seeing that Qing Yaojin and the others had spoken, Xiao Gizi also hurriedly knelt and said, Your Majesty, this servant's Chamberlain province is willing to donate all the surplus, a total of 320 dan of grain. Good. Good. Li Shimin looked at Xiao Gizi with appreciation. He glanced at the officials. There was no need to say what he meant. Even the eunuch could donate so much, what about you? How could the officials sit still after hearing Xiao Gizi's words? They were so embarrassed that they panicked. Although this old official doesn't have much land and has suffered a disaster, this old official is willing to donate half of the family's grain, a total of 57 dan. This old official will donate 30 dan. This old official. Chapter 551. This was all part of Li Shimin's plan. To be precise, he had long wanted to deal with these people. These guys had so many properties in their families. He did not believe that they only had so little food. Except for Zhang Sun and the others who had taken out some of their family's food, the rest only had a few dozen dan. Li Shimin was not confused. Before doing this, he had already asked Fang Xianling to carefully check the land situation of each official's family. Therefore, in his heart, these people had long been clear about them. Li Shimin frowned slightly. The officials in the hall who had not spoken yet could not help but feel something. Although my family has 300 mu of fertile land, before the locust plague, the women in my family sold almost everything that could be sold in order to free up space. Therefore, I only have 300 dan of food left. I am willing to donate 200 dan to help the people of Chang and tide over this crisis. At this moment, a fifth-grade official in a green court robe said respectfully. This person was Minister Zhou of the Honglu Temple. Li Shimin could not help but nod. Good, you are very good. If everyone was like you, would the Tang dynasty be in trouble? Minister Zhou could not help but be overjoyed when he heard this. This is what I should do. Hearing Minister Zhou of the Honglu Temple say so, the person who had said a few dozen dan could not help but blush. He could not help but curse Minister Zhou in his heart. However, after seeing Minister Zhou's situation, the people behind him could not help but feel a fire in their hearts. At this moment, this group of old foxes could not help but feel a fire in their hearts again. This was an excellent opportunity to climb up the ranks. How could they let it go? Someone had tested the water for them. No matter what they did, they could not donate less than this small Minister Zhou of the Honglu Temple, could they? To put it bluntly, that little amount of food was nothing to them. If they donated too much and won the emperor's favor, they would be promoted, and then, wouldn't they get everything back? At this thought, all the officials could not sit still. I am willing to donate 170 dan. I am willing to donate 192 dan. 200 dan. I bid 300 sure. When this voice rang out, everyone was in an uproar. Even Li Shimin raised his eyebrows. It was the Minister of Rights, Li Shaogong. When he saw the playful look on Li Shimin's face, he couldn't help but say, "This old minister was wrong. It's 500 stones." Commandery Prince Hejian is indeed a member of the royal family. I am very pleased that you have such courage. Very good, very good. It is the blessing of the Tang dynasty to have you. What's there to worry about? 500 stones. There was no lack of Li clan relatives in the imperial court. At this moment, under the leadership of Li Shaogong, no one could sit still. However, there was no lack of stingy people among them. Even though they had learned from the mistakes of others, they still donated as much as they could. What was this? In times of famine, food was more useful than money. Now, even if you were rich, you might not be able to buy food even if you took out 1,000 strings of coins. No one was stupid. What was this food? It was life-saving money. If they donated it at this time, it would be like throwing the money into the water. How could they pay it back? No one knew how long this famine would last. Food was the foundation of whether a big family could survive or not. Who would be so stupid? Who would donate all their food? To put it bluntly, how long had Li Tang been the emperor? Didn't the previous emperors and dynasties all change in a few years or a dozen years? It was their duty to donate a little. No matter how the imperial court changed, it was still the right way to maintain one's family. This was the idea that everyone had. Li Shimin could also think of it. He could also foresee it. He didn't intend to take much from these officials. At least the food in Chang, and plus Zhang Feng's 20,000 dong, could be said to have solved this problem. The reason why he asked was that he wanted to see how many people there were. However, after this test, Li Shimin couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Which official in the imperial court didn't he know? Who could escape his eyes? He knew the family background of Zhang Sun Wuji and the others. At the first time of the locust plague in Chang, and Wei Jing, Zhang Sun Wuji, Fang Xianling, Du Ruhui, Qing Yaojin, and the others had already taken out a large amount of food to suppress the food price. Li Shimin was clear that they could donate so much this time. This was basically their entire family background. After a lot of things, almost 2,000 dong of food had been donated at the super meeting. This was enough. At least Li Shimin could see these people clearly. At this time, Li Shimin recorded the names of all the officials who donated food in front of the Minister of Internal Affairs. Li Shimin said, "Today, I don't ask you to donate a lot, but I know that every one of you has difficulties. I don't ask you to donate a lot. I only ask that this disaster is not fought alone." But I learned something yesterday. On the abandoned mountain, someone took out 20,000 dong of food and prepared to give porridge. Boom! Chapter 552. Li Shimin's words caused an uproar among the courtiers. Who is so stupid? 20,000 sure? Holy shit! Why haven't I met or heard of such an idiot before? 20,000 sure of grain. If only half of it was needed, how much land and things would they be able to exchange for? Still, it seems like, wait a minute. Xiaoshan, why does this name sound so familiar? I remember now. Isn't this the White Deer College? And the one that the emperor gave the decree? Right, I remember now. Is this the college? Why are the people in that college so rich? 20,000 sure. It seems to be the college that the Crown Prince set up. I heard that the Crown Prince wants to set up an innovative college to train himself. As soon as Li Shimin mentioned Mounty, everybody suddenly thought of something. Everyone had heard of this matter before, but it wasn't that they had heard of it. Anyone who had a son in their family was basically unable to escape the fate of being captured by Cheng Chumo and the others with great fanfare. In the end, from the emperor's point of view, this college was simply something that the emperor wanted to give to the crown prince to train himself. In fact, the emperor wanted to give the crown prince an opportunity to cultivate a team of people. There were things like the study of cooks, the study of merchants, and so on. Was this something that a college should do? When everyone heard about Xiaoshan, they couldn't help but shake their heads. If the White Deer College in Xiaoshan could produce talented people, they would be willing to retire and return to their hometown. What is this? They are just a bunch of stubborn people. What can they do? Furthermore, they even came up with 20,000 sure of grain. What is this? Isn't it because they want the grain in our hands? Who couldn't come up with 20,000 share of grain now? But what the F***K is this to help the disaster victims? This is an idiot. His head must have been caught in the door. Otherwise, who the F***K would do such a stupid thing? Only a prodigal would do such a thing. Moreover, you haven't seen the Hua Xing temple in Chang'an, as well as the other temples around Cheng. Now that the calamity has struck, none of them have left their doors. Not even a single temple has opened its doors. But they were afraid that those poor people would come and share their rations with them. When it came to food, other than the people in the main hall, who else could compare with them? But what about them? At this time, a minister could not sit still any longer. He bowed and stepped out of the ranks, saying, "Your Majesty, this person is willing to take out 20,000 dawn of grain to save our Chang. This is the blessing of our Tang dynasty. This old subject congratulates your Majesty." When the ministers heard this, they bowed in unison. "We congratulate your Majesty and the Tang dynasty." Li Shimin already knew that this would be the result. However, on one hand he wanted to promote Zhang Feng of the Xingshan gang. But this seemed to have misunderstood the situation. But it doesn't matter. It would be best if they thought of Li Qingqian. This way, Zhang Feng's danger would be greatly reduced. Most importantly, White Deer College's reputation would be completely established. That was enough. Well, today's court is dismissed. You are all trusted officials of the Tang Empire, so I hope that you can also do your best to provide porridge to the victims. Tomorrow, the Chang and local treasury will open the gate of the Chang and local treasury and then suppress the food price to provide relief to the victims. Li Shimin waved his hand and stood up. Little Gizi hurriedly shouted, "Court is dismissed." Seeing this, the ministers also hurriedly stood up and shouted, "Farewell, your Majesty." As soon as he left the political announcement hall, Li Shimin sat down in the pavilion in the middle of the lake. On the one hand, it was cool here. The imperial study was as hot as a steamer. Although it was in the morning and the sun had not yet shone on the earth, the dull smell was still nauseating. On the other hand, Li Shimin was waiting for someone. He was waiting for Zhang Sun and the others. Before Li Shimin finished reading the 3 memorials, Zhang Sun Wuji and the others really came. "Your Majesty, what does Brother Zhang Feng want to do? We have been thinking about it all night, but we still can't figure out what Brother Zhang Feng wants to do with a carpenter. Yes, it's chicken, duck, or the saw pig. We can all understand. Although the saw pig is too smelly, it is still edible at this time. But this carpenter, well, don't talk about it. I am also thinking about it. I thought you all knew about it, but I didn't expect, alas. Forget it, forget it. Zhang Feng has always been like this. It's hard to figure out. But since he said it out loud, you guys should go and help him. Zhang Feng can be considered to have done me a great favor. Now, how many refugees have gathered outside Chang'an City? Your Majesty, for the time being, there are at least 10,000 refugees in Chang'an City. Most of them are from other places in the city. 10,000? So many? Li Shimin's heart sank. But with 10,000 people, 20,000 dawn of grain should be enough, right? But just as Li Shimin was thinking about it, Zhang Sun Wuji reported again. But according to the spies, refugees outside the city are gathering in Chang and from Luozhou and Qinling. For the time being, we don't know the specific situation, but this old minister guesses that if this group of people comes, Brother Zhang Feng's 20,000 dawn of grain